Chapter 451, The Turning Specialists. Chapter 451, The Turning Specialist. The armies smashed into each other like floods. The side who pushed the other, who pressed their momentum, would soon gain control over the entire battlefield. A role most suited to a poisoner, especially when it came to wars. Zhuo Fan looked down on poisoners, saying that they were useless in a battle of experts, but when it came to culling, no one was better at it. And in a battle like this, a poisoner was a force to be reckoned with, a veritable grim reaper doing his job as God intended. Yen Bagong knew of his importance, wishing to use this chance to showcase his power. But against the traitorous Yen Song, his chance was gone and he had instead suffered from poisoning himself in a cruel twist of irony. It only worked to shame him further. The great Hall Lord using poison to kill others was now being served the same coin. And Yen Song's poison wasn't limited to affecting him, but Regent Estate factions experts en masse. If he pulled back now, there'd be nothing left of his name to speak of. Yu Wanshan watched the poison mist as he retreated. A dozen Radiant Stage experts, confident in their strength, pushed through it to take Yen Song down. He had to die for their army to survive. Luo clan's power couple entered the scene midway, pushing these oldies back with miserable faces. And that wasn't even half of it. What got them so wretched and wishing they could tear the two piece by piece was that Luo clan in its entirety had inherited Zhuo Fan's expert turning skills. With the fall of Hell Valley, Pill King Hall and Merry Woods, Luo clan had bolstered their elder ranks with every fallen house. The venerables and elders who did not crack under Zhuo Fan's masterful silver-tongued promises ended up as an example for those who did. But some stragglers were bound to have escaped the destruction of the houses and returned to their house lords. It was all good and well so far. With these new elders being quite close to each other and Yen Song's poison to clear a path, once Luo clan had the upper hand, they'd follow Zhuo Fan's vile plan into striking their hearts, and not chase a vanquished enemy. When push came to shove, these experts would choose self-destruction, and that would have been a far worse scenario. So before the war started, Zhuo Fan taught them to target their minds, appeal to their compassion and friendship. The best plan so far. And so, within the cruel battlefield, some very touching and sappy reunions cropped up in remote corners. Brother, why you turned over to Luo clan? Hell Valley's third venerable looked at the other in shock. I thought Zhuo Fan had you killed 3. The ex-high venerable of Hell Valley sighed. It's a long story. All in all, we're with the Luo clan now. Zhuo Fan is a tyrant, but as long as you don't anger him, he has quite the respect for us. And he even welcomed us with cultivation methods the likes of which Tianyu has never seen. We are certain that in 50 years we can enter the ethereal stage. What? The third venerable stood dumbstruck. Brother, didn't you say there's no chance for us to reach it with our talent? Haha, that was earlier with Hell Valley's limited resources. But after getting to know the Luo clan, I realized that those 7 noble houses are nothing but ignorant whelps. Luo clan has a far bigger legacy than even the imperial family. There are rare ingredients piled up in mountains and countless rings. Vicious Pill King Yen Song's only job is to take some alchemy disciples and bake in the pill house. They even use 6th grade ingredients to raise the success of making just 3rd grade pills, 100,000 of them. A true waste, such money bags. High Venerable praised. Third Venerable was stunned. Why is a third-rate clan so awesome? With their stuff, no one in Tianyu can compare. It's like they've harvested the nation for 1,000 years. High Venerable turned serious. Old Third, we each have our lords. I hate for being the one to hurt you, brother, and can only present you with 3 choices. Leave and live in seclusion far away from here, stay and I will have no choice but to fight you, or join Luo clan and live together with your brothers. That Third Venerable was conflicted. Since you do not want to join us, I can only hope you'd leave. We 4 have worked together for so many years. I'd hate to see my brother's bloody face. High Venerable shook his head. Third Venerable waved all over the place. Oh no, elder brother, you're wrong. I just want to ask, are you for Real? Third Venerable's eyes shone with greed. Of course, have I ever lied to you in all these years? High Venerable stuck his head out. Old Third, Zhuo Fan is a master tactician and already has a plan in place to handle everything. Did you really think Regent Estate was going to win? Look around you, Luo clan is on a constant rise. Even if Huangpu Tianyuan is strong, he is chasing his grave. There will only ever be Zhuo Fan in this world. He has destroyed all houses in Tianyu, even his allies. High Venerable whispered, Steward Zhuo has set up the Luo clan as the biggest, making it the supreme power in Tianyu. I'm not going to lie to you. Come join us as a new elder. This will be your only chance. What, a single power? Zhuo Fan has such ambition? Third Venerable pondered and nodded. Elder brother, I wish not to ruin our brotherhood and can only hope to stand by your side as we make history. Good old third, I expected nothing less. High Venerable grabbed his palm, taking a vial from his back with a bloodworm inside. Brother, to enter Luo clan, you must take this bloodworm. Third Venerable found it improper, but from High Venerable's stern look, this was no game. Recalling again the promise of resources from Luo clan, the Third Venerable swallowed it. High Venerable laughed, going together on a nice little trip to Regent Estate to murder the rest of them. The same exchange happened all over the place, saying it's out of brotherhood when the dangling bait was just too damn good. These guys were homeless anyway, they didn't even have time to worry about resources. Along came the Luo clan extending its gold-plated hand. Who in their right mind would refuse it? As an extra proof of sincerity, it came from old pals. The battle was a few hours in when Yuanshan and the other lords found something strange. What are the venerables and elders doing, slaughtering their way over? Wasn't it a bit early to come back? And why are there so many of them? Taking a good deal of time to process this, they all came to one conclusion: fall back. Much of a war this turned out to be. The enemy didn't come to kill us but to turn us. How could they win now? All that was left was for them to turn as well. Lung Wuchang sighed. Zhuo Fan's psychological warfare is otherworldly. Just what did he use to achieve it? There must be something off about this to get so many in such a short time. Back to Regent Estate. We'll think about it then. Lung Wuchang shouted to his faction. Luo clan was hot on their tail. Shadow King's trio watched the odd war with dumb faces. What the hell? What did Luo clan do to them? Isn't it too fast? Shadow King was flabbergasted. Feng Qiubai sighed. If you're looking for a specialist in turning experts, go to Wingay City's Luo clan and find Zhuo Fan. Shadow King's face twitched. Even with Zhuo Fan away, everything still played by his rules. Regent Estate's victory was based on Huangpu Tianyuan's 9 Dragons diamond body alone, while Zhuo Fan had some tactical counters in place besides just himself. To put it another way, this trick of his had a heavier impact than his strength. In this aspect, Zhuo Fan had Lung Wuchang beat by miles. Again using himself as bait, Feng Qiubai sighed. Zhuo Fan used the same tactic in the esoteric debate with flying colors. While now he has caught Lung Wuchang unprepared, his schemes working at full power even while he is away. He won in every aspect. In your opinion, was his defeat fake? Shadow King looked at the sky. Then he must have a way to deal with Huangpu Tianyuan. I'm really curious about what can possibly hold 9 Dragons diamond body in check. Zhuo Fan's final rivals may very well be us. Feng Qiubai and Sima Hui nodded while flying away to watch the events play out. Chapter 452, Little Qilin's Support. Chapter 452, Little Qilin's Support. Whoosh. A flash of red dotted the sky every now and then, in sync with Zhuo Fan's right eye's golden glow. Right behind him was a yellow light, just missing him with each jump but so fast that no one could identify what it was. Zhuo Fan appeared a mile away just to see the same yellow light on his trail. He gnashed his teeth, spat blood a few times and went right back to running. Zhuo Fan kept popping up every mile, but no matter what he did, he just couldn't shake his yellow tail. Huangpu Tianyuan was right behind him. 3 whole days, that was how long the two played around. Zhuo Fan's chest hole was still leaking, his face whiter than paper. Yet he never stopped shifting, not even to catch a breath. Even a minute delay would have that freak tearing him a new one. Zhuo Fan shook his head. His only gripe with 9 Dragons diamond body was its capacity to get Huangpu Tianyuan to the ethereal stage once all 9 dragon souls were together. Now that would spell doom for even him. Thus, he just let the old guy have those 8 dragons reaching peak radiant stage, while thinking that no matter how strong he got, he would be no match for the sacred beast Qilin's leg. With tangible projection, the Qilin arm would be like a strike from the heavens, smashing everything if not killing him outright. Reality confirmed this truth as well. Huangpu Tianyuan lay twisted under the Qilin leg even with the 9 Dragons diamond body. But out of Zhuo Fan's calculations, the Bodhi root was integrated in the 9 Dragons diamond body to use that returning dragon shtick, and it let him get right back in action. It made his body truly invincible and even left Zhuo Fan speechless on how to counter it. Huangpu Tianyuan didn't give him room to work his brain either, counterattacking and turning this into Zhuo Fan's second life's second loss. First was Gu Santong, of course. Zhuo Fan had to admit he had come short of 9 Dragons' diamond body. And even though he did lose, it did not mean defeat. As the ill-reputed steward of Luo clan directed his allies like a conductor, no one could stand up to those twisted and vile schemes of his. So when this chase was the only option left, he said to hell with honor and left the battlefield in the hands of his most capable peons. He was totally convinced, based on Luo clan's experts and those enticing tricks, that the regent estate would fall. Tricks only effective if Huangpu Tianyuan was out of the picture, even if momentarily. Otherwise the old bag of diamond bones would have been a beacon of hope and the turning would have to be cut short. Who wouldn't be afraid of this freak breaking their melon? Certainly not a fresh traitor. Zhuo Fan just had to get Huangpu Tianyuan away for his devious plan to work. But was the great estate Lord Huangpu gonna take the bait? Just like that? Yep. Zhuo Fan was that certain. For starters, after beating Zhuo Fan, his confidence and his strength exploded to new unseen heights. With Zhuo Fan's seminal value for Luo clan's victory, if he was dead, Luo clan would be done for. If Zhuo Fan was around, no matter how ruined Luo clan would become, or how many times it was beaten, it would still be like grass in spring, sprouting from God knew where, with more power than ever. It was only a matter of time. Huangpu Tianyuan could not let that happen. Zhuo Fan's badly wounded state was the best chance to take him out for good. Secondly, Zhuo Fan was just too damn bright, hiding Luo clan's glow. Each time Regent Estate faced Zhuo Fan, they had suffered great losses. To the point that all of Regent Estate believed that this war was in fact a fight against Zhuo Fan alone. Li Jingtian and other experts were negligible. Besides, the moon shined brighter than any star. Zhuo Fan was just too obnoxious, too outstanding, blinding their dog eyes to the reality and Luo clan's other experts. Even Lung Wuchang fell for it. He only had Zhuo Fan in his sights. If this guy lost, all was over. He focused on getting Huangpu Tianyuan to boost his power, the 9 Dragons' diamond body, just to face Zhuo Fan. But Zhuo Fan went against their thinking, leaving the fate of the war in the hands of others, giving Leng Wuchang no plan to counter and forcing him to go on the run. Funnily enough, it wasn't even Zhuo Fan's fallback plan, but just plan B. If he'd wrecked Huangpu Tianyuan back there, he would have been leading the goddamn attack by now instead of running around the place. Zhuo Fan shook his head and sighed, staggering in his flight. Huangpu Tianyuan had given him far greater damage than he had accounted for. I wonder if I can hold on for plan B to complete. Zhuo Fan looked ahead and took a deep breath, coughed just a bit more. Zhuo Fan's right eye flashed again, just as the yellow light behind him whistled close and he felt his head hurt in pain from the sound of the attack. Zhuo Fan blocked with his arms. Bam! He slammed into the rocky ground and in his place was a savage dragon's tail. Ha! Zhuo Fan, after a 3-day-long chase, you're finally out of steam. Zhuo Fan pulled himself from the pile of rocks, out of breath. Just 20 more miles and I would have made it. But getting away now. Zhuo Fan squinted, noticing his enemy's fixed gaze for any movements, and sighed. It was hard getting out now with his beaten body. But giving himself over was never part of Zhuo Fan's style. Huangpu Tianyuan, did you know that I played you? Your men are being killed just about now. Zhuo Fan mocked. Huangpu Tianyuan laughed. Zhuo Fan, your life is worth 1,000 armies. If they lost because of Luo clan, it only proves they're useless. And I don't take kindly to dead weights around here. But if you die, there'll be no one to stop me. Be it Luo clan or the 7 houses, none will matter at that point, haha. Huangpu Tianyuan's sharp eyes glinted and he shot for Zhuo Fan with his claws out. Humph, where's that Qilin shield? My claw is about to take your heart. Can your shield take it? Zhuo Fan gnashed his teeth, straining to even lift his arms. He only had the beast arms to rely on. But those hands of his only trembled. Sighing inside, Zhuo Fan knew he was on the brink of collapse from his wounds. Not even his arms could take an attack now. Huangpu Tianyuan was excited. Zhuo Fan, today's your funeral. Cut the bull, I won't die here. Zhuo Fan dredged the last bit of energy to cross his arms. Huangpu Tianyuan smirked, putting more power in his attack, his eyes trembling in joy. The great hero Zhuo Fan, having rained havoc in Tianyu for a decade, would find his end at his hands. For him, who was about to establish his own dynasty, it was the greatest feat of strength. The collision was imminent, unless that red glow coming in from far had something to say about it. It smacked Huangpu Tianyuan away into a hill a mile away, breaking it to pieces. Once his head popped out from the rubble, he saw a pint-sized figure next to Zhuo Fan. His eyes widened and he shouted, Invincible scamp, Gu Santong? Zhuofan laughed at the timely rescue. My life stays with me still. Old Huangpu, you loach, I can't take you down, but this little qilin of mine will bury you, haha. Chapter 453, Gu Santong's Awesome Power. Chapter 453, Gu Santong's Awesome Power. Hearing the free laughter from Zhuofan, Gu Santong turned to him, enraged at how close he was to the door of death. Dad, who did this to you? Didn't you say we're going to ambush him? I've been waiting for ages. Figured you were done with him and came here to check, but now I see. Zhuofan sighed, a miscalculation. The main plan was to cut him off if he fled. But his strength exceeded my expectations and I had to resort to a new contingency, as in, to have you deal with him. But be careful. Don't worry, Dad. Since you've asked for help, I will not disappoint. Gu Santong was fired up, turning a stone-cold face towards Huangpu Tianyuan. Huangpu Tianyuan's face twitched and he shivered. Gu Santong was number one in all of Tianyu, his name echoing through the last 3 centuries that no one alive could catch up to. His power was otherworldly, so much so that not even with 9 dragons' diamond body was he confident to take the kid on. Gu Santong and Zhuofan were somebodies to be careful around. He had planned on taking them down one at a time, starting with the cunning Zhuofan. Gu Santong was outrageously strong but naive. Once Zhuofan fell, he'd finish Gu Santong the same way as last time, with numbers. How was he supposed to know that just when he was about to put Zhuofan's head on a pike, Gu Santong would show up? If they teamed up, he'd be worse for wear. Huangpu Tianyuan shouted, Gu Santong, weren't you ordered to take down the traitor Zhuofan? I was just about to take his life, helping you as well. Why then did you save him instead? Bullshit, he's my dad. What son out there would help someone kill his dad? Humph, you freak of nature dares to hurt my dad and I will get you for this. Gu Santong waved his tiny fist. Huangpu Tianyuan jerked. What? Why you mean Zhuofan is your father? That's impossible. A godfather is still a father. Got a problem with that? Gu Santong snorted. That cleared it all up for Huangpu Tianyuan, but it also worked to put him in a heavy mood. He couldn't for the life of him figure out how Zhuofan pulled it off, getting this little menace to become his godson. If they teamed up, nothing could stand up to them in Tianyu. More importantly, since when? With Zhuofan's guile, he'd be keeping it hidden and cook up a scheme to make Gu Santong chase him when he fell out of grace with the imperial family. Huangpu Tianyuan felt a chill run all over him. If he knew Zhuofan even a bit, he was sure the guy would keep his aces hidden for the best occasions. With how everyone scrambled for power, just when he thought he had the lands in his control, this bastard Zhuofan ought to be gone from the picture with Gu Santong on his tail, but in fact made a tactical retreat to build his forces. And this sudden change would make the enemies underestimate Zhuofan and fall for his trick. In the know yourself and your enemy and you shall be ever victorious, Zhuofan had one-upped everyone by hiding Gu Santong away. Huangpu Tianyuan gasped at the implications. Thanks to his lucky stars, he had discovered it before it was too late to suffer at this insidious killer move. He still had the power to turn it around. Huangpu Tianyuan cooled, bloodthirst seethed, and with Zhuofan down from his wounds, all that was left was Gu Santong. He just had to beat Gu Santong and he'd have taken 2 thorns out like nothing. Huangpu Tianyuan's tension flowed out of him and he started rejoicing. The prospects of taking 2 big shots heads off were looking up, finishing off Luo clan and imperial family in one strike. Ha, Gu Santong, I've heard of your almighty power and wish to try it out for myself. Now that there's chaos all around us, allow me to take that invincible title off of you. Huangpu Tianyuan laughed. Gu Santong mocked, Humph, quite the pair you have there. In the last 3 centuries, there's been no one as stuck up as you to come talking to me. You 2-bit vermin, wait for me to twist your head. Young Sanzi, his 9 dragons diamond body is tough. Keep in mind. Zhuofan advised, but Gu Santong was already off, totally taking the other guy for granted. Huangpu Tianyuan laughed. Bam. The claw and fist collided, shaking the ground around them. The shock wave leveled anything within a mile. Huangpu Tianyuan staggered back 10 steps, while Gu Santong only 5, startled. It was his first time being pushed back when dishing punches. Huangpu Tianyuan was shuddering inside, having newfound knowledge of the extent of Invincible Scamp's power. With 9 dragons diamond body's power backing him, he only got Gu Santong a few steps back. If it were Zhuofan, the guy'd be blown away into rubble somewhere by now. Huangpu Tianyuan looked for a way to deal with him. Gu Santong couldn't accept it. He had just used 80% of his power and yet was still pushed back, unlike the time he played around with Zhuofan. Gu Santong lifted his cute face and shouted, "Again!" Gu Santong and Huangpu Tianyuan clashed. But this time around, Huangpu Tianyuan didn't take the fist head-on. His claw attack was a feint, jumping back and avoiding the fist, while retaliating with his tail at Gu Santong's back. Gu Santong frowned, flying into a hill and reshaping the landscape. "Ha, against my tail, even if you're the invincible scamp, you'd still end up bruised." Huangpu Tianyuan laughed at the pile of rubble. Zhuofan's eyelids twitched, shaking his head. It wasn't that easy injuring young Sanzi because he was a sacred beast. But with his simple mind and simple attacks, it was equally simple to whip him. Gu Santong jumped out of the rubble, feeling his back. "Ow, that hurt like hell. Blast it, how did he do that? And why is it so hard?" Raising his clothes and looking behind him, Gu Santong was unable to see any wound and could only feel around. "At least it's not an open wound." What he didn't see, Huangpu Tianyuan did. Staring at his back with a gloomy look, his eyes were popping out. He just used all he had in that lashing, enough to split Zhuofan in two. But Gu Santong didn't even have his skin peeled, only a light imprint. What kind of freak is this kid? Huangpu Tianyuan's confidence in beating him hit rock bottom. Before one was to defeat another, you'd best be able to harm him first. But he couldn't do even that. Huangpu Tianyuan felt like a 3-year-old in front of a buffed uncle. His tiny fist could do nothing against that tower of muscle. Zhuofan snickered inside. Gu Santong's strength was innate, used to handle everything with his 2 fists. So while Huangpu Tianyuan had no chance to beat him, he did not have the brains to keep Huangpu Tianyuan here either. He reminded him, "Young Sanzi, this guy just called you an idiot for falling for his whip like a kid. He just doesn't know fear." As if, when did I ever say that? Huangpu Tianyuan glared. He knew Zhuofan was playing dirty to instigate a bigger conflict. As young Sanzi's godfather, of course he'd believe his dad over another. His face steeled and snorted, "I'm an idiot." Huangpu Tianyuan gulped, racking his brain for a way out. His eyes lit up. Since claws and tail didn't work, he'd use secret arts. This freak has no weakness. While Gu Santong was firing up his rage, Huangpu Tianyuan shouted, "Earth Dragon Wave." Roar. A yellow glow shot for Gu Santong. But the kid just stood there, shining all red. Bam. Earth Dragon Wave slammed into him, but the scene made the other bug-eyed. Gu Santong took the attack and didn't budge an inch. In fact, he was walking towards Huangpu Tianyuan, against the godly might of the 8 dragon souls. He pushed them all back like nothing. Huangpu Tianyuan was dumbstruck. This is insane. The kid is a true monster. Chapter 454, Original Form. Chapter 454, Original Form. "You old bag of bones, who are you calling an idiot?" Gu Santong stomped the ground with every step, shuddering his heart each time. As for the yellow beam, it got smaller and smaller. Huangpu Tianyuan's mouth was wide open, words stuck in his throat. Gu Santong roared, trembled, and the red light exploded from him. The Earth Dragon Wave just bounced away like a soccer ball. Boom. With a rattling explosion, the attack returned to Huangpu Tianyuan's mouth, throwing him sky-high in a spectacular fashion. Kissing the ground hard once more, his dragon jaw was gone, leaving behind a black hole giving off a thick black smoke. Gu Santong flicked his arm in disdain at the tittering figure. "Vermin, I can use my head, but there's no one in this world worthy of me doing so, humph." Tyrannical. Zhuofan was dumbstruck too. He liked to showboat and be all cocky, but all his acts were nothing in front of his son's high-class act. Power trumped everything. Who the hell would use their head when their fist was enough? Young Sanzi only looked dull in the head, but he saw through everyone the real number 1 in Tianyu. And that Qilin's shield even reflected such an attack, a soaring Qilin's mighty ability. "Young Sanzi, your old man takes his hat off to you. The weak scheme while the strong punch holes in their schemes. Wonderful genius." Zhuofan sighed, giving Gu Santong a thumbs up. Gu Santong might have just been saying it, but it got him thinking. Zhuofan controlled the whole stage with the imperial family and regent estate moving at his will. He was like a king. While it only showed just how weak he was. Would a mighty tiger lay a trap for a weak little lamb? Obviously not. As the king of beasts, he'd eat anyone that popped in his vision. Why waste time thinking about it? Gu Santong was the same, punching holes in any who stepped up, not wasting time with even martial arts. He was just that strong, pulverizing anyone with a snap. Zhuo Fan spoke honestly, "Young Sanzi, I shall take this lesson to heart. Compared to you, your old man falls short." Gu Santong scratched his head. "Dad, are you praising me?" You flatter me. You know, the uncle in All Beast Mountain Range is praising you as well. That I have much to learn from you to not be so stubborn." "No, it is I who should learn from you. I plot against others for interests alone. But those interests are ephemeral, hardly affecting my own person. While you, nothing chains you and you can walk the path of the strong." Zhuo Fan sighed, "Demonic cultivators are selfish. I used to think it refers to self-interest or maybe being alone. But that may not be the case. I will have to simplify my demonic path, it seems." Zhuo Fan's heart achieved peace, like a new world had opened to him. Roar. The sudden noise wrestled him out of that marvelous state. Zhuo Fan shuddered, bursting with unbridled rage. "For God's sake, I'm having an epiphany here. Can't you break it up a little here, please?" He saw Huangpu Tianyuan bursting with green light and his busted jaw was growing under the naked eye. "It's that damn returning dragon's roar." Zhuo Fan shouted, "Young Sanzi, this geezer can recover from anything, his body undying. Breaking a few bones won't work, you have to kill him." Gu Santong was watching Huangpu Tianyuan flicking his tail in laughter. "Gu Santong, you may be strong but you can't kill me. So how about we each go our own way and see each other in the future?" Huangpu Tianyuan cupped his hands and fled. "Future your head. Today is the day you die." Gu Santong was not one to give up, shooting towards him and punching. Boom. Huangpu Tianyuan got buried underground again into a 100-meter deep hole. His earth dragon head was bleeding, his mind hurting like hell. But he was still alive. Gu Santong roared, "I have crossed Tianyu for so many years and there's nothing alive that I can't kill. Humph worm, you will now witness the true face of a Qilin." Roar. Gu Santong shone red for a moment before turning into a 30-meter red Qilin. He was back to his original form as a sacred beast, soaring Qilin. He was still young but the power of the sacred beast radiated out. The entire mortal domain, its spiritual beasts, everything was cowering and wailing. Huangpu Tianyuan shouted, "Gu Santong, what move is this?" "Humph, this is no move, just my true form." Gu Santong showed his sharp fangs, "I am a sacred beast and in this form I can display all my power. That punch of mine? That was only 30% of what I can do. Worm, one stomp will nail you dead." Gu Santong trampled and Huangpu Tianyuan slammed into the ground. Boom. With the fall of the red hoof, the world shook and the earth caved. 1,000 meters, then 10,000, soon stretching out for 9 kilometers. While the surrounding 100 miles shook harder than an earthquake, the landscape changed forever. Fang Qiubai's team were rushing over when they felt this impossible power. The shockwave was so great it was hard for even them to take it. "What is going on out there? What caused such a power spike?" Sima Hui cried. The other two shook their heads. "Anyway, it's those two that are the cause of it for sure. We better take a look," Shadow King advised. The two looked below. Gone were the green meadows and flourishing forest, giving way for endless sands. The two monsters were these spies' main targets for observation. After Gu Santong's stomp, Zhuo Fan crawled out of some hole to watch the aftermath. "Welp, that's the real soaring Qilin's leg for you. Albeit a cub, he could still break the world." Zhuo Fan admired his sacred beast's power even more. How else could they be on the same level as the 10 ancient emperors? What got him so envious though was that this power came naturally. It made him look like an ant, impossible to reach. Sigh, why wasn't I born as an awesome beast? "Ha, worm, let's see you come back from that." Gu Santong laughed and lifted his hoof from the broken and bloody Huangpu Tianyuan. Guts, gore and blood spewed up from his mouth. What was even more amazing was that he was still alive, followed by a resplendent green glow. Still alive? Gu Santong was outraged. "There's nothing I can't kill." Gu Santong stomped again with all four this time. 1,000 miles around shook non-stop, with some volcanoes even erupting. But not even dozens of stomps could cut Huangpu Tianyuan's life string, no matter how twisted a mess he became. Gu Santong was fuming but Zhuo Fan stopped him. "Young Sanzi, it's no use. The Bodhi root is too strong, protecting his life. If you can't remove that returning dragon soul, it won't matter how much you stomp, it won't change anything. What do we do now? I want to kill him but I can't. This has never happened in 300 years. I'm boiling mad." Gu Santong was getting pissy. Fan snickered, his trademark evil grin getting back in business. Ha, easy. I got just the thing. And I am quite piqued by those 8 dragon souls as well. Purely academic, of course. Chapter 455. 9 Dragons Combined. Chapter 455. 9 Dragons Combined. Gu Santong was clueless, but Fan propped his weak body over, his evil smile looking glorious on his face. The green glow had started by now, filling Huangpu Tianyuan's body with brimming vitality and healing him all over again. Haha, I am undying. You got nothing on me? Huangpu Tianyuan cackled. Gu Santong was raging again. Boom. Huangpu Tianyuan was stomped into the ground, his face twisted in pain so bad you couldn't even see his features. He may be undying but not pain-free. Young Sanzi's trampling hurt like hell. Not that he minded. He just felt good putting up a tough front in front of peak experts like Gu Santong and Fan, seeing how they could do nothing to him. Other than the excruciating pain, he felt peachy. Haha, you may have joined hands but it doesn't mean squat. Huangpu Tianyuan smiled. Fan grinned, taking one step at a time like climbing mountains. Old codger, don't get ahead of yourself. 9 Dragons Diamond Body is but an earth-ranked martial art, far from invincible. Your point? You still can't take me out either way. Unless you enter the ethereal stage and destroy my soul, nothing will work, ha. Huangpu Tianyuan sneered, looking at them saying, take your best shot. I'll just sit here waiting. Gu Santong was about to flip out, squeezing harder on the guy with the hoof, but Huangpu Tianyuan just toughed it out. Fan still took slow steps over. He placed a bloody hand on the guy's head. Young Sanzi, hold him down good, Fan warned. Gu Santong nodded. Huangpu Tianyuan mocked, Fan, you're on the verge of collapse with no energy left. What could you possibly do? You couldn't even best me at your peak. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. Huangpu Tianyuan laughed, as did Fan. Huangpu Tianyuan frowned, I'm mocking your weakness. Why are you laughing? I'm laughing at your ignorance. Fan's eyes flashed with a black glow and his body released a black energy. The world is filled with countless arts and techniques. Do you think that Bodhi root has truly made your body undying? Feast your eyes on the real world. Even with your 9 Dragons Diamond Body, you'll still have a horrid death. Demon Transformation Art. The black energy flowed through his hand into Huangpu Tianyuan. The rock-solid earth dragon body was stained with pitch-black energy, as it seeped into him, dissolving him, despite how hard the dragon souls fought the invasion. Especially the returning dragon soul, it turned black as if poisoned. How come? Bodhi root was the essence of life, a panacea for all poisons. Fusing it with the dragon soul would make the returning dragon soul immune as well. Not like he could tell this was no poison, but Fan's Yuan Qi built through the demon transformation art. Demon transformation art could assimilate anything and everything, taking all that it had and leaving nothing but dregs. He was putting Huangpu Tianyuan through the same process, robbing him blind, dragon souls included. Fan, what the hell are you doing? Huangpu Tianyuan lost his smug attitude. It even contained dread. Fan just grinned, hi, what he asks? This. Fan worked his art and took it all back now. Huangpu Tianyuan felt his power leaving, his Yuan Qi, his breath, even the dragon souls. Everything going into Fan. Overwhelmed, Huangpu Tianyuan struggled to get away. With a monster above him, he was going nowhere fast though, made to endure this naked humiliation as the power ebbed from him. Roar. The wail of a dragon shook Fan as a dragon soul entered his body. With the loss of one dragon soul, Huangpu Tianyuan's claw returned to normal. Panicking, Huangpu Tianyuan was horrified. He guessed what Fan was doing, but the reality was just that much crueler, of how easy it all came to Fan. He had refined them himself, through blood and sweat, yet they jumped ship like it was nothing. What demonic art is Fan using to rob me? That dragon soul he got from Huangpu Qingtian was because his life faded away. But Huangpu Tianyuan was very much alive right now. Huangpu Qingyuan's heart was going a mile a minute, yet he did not have the time to mind the doubts, finding himself at death's door. Stop, I say. Humph, old Huangpu, you're so stuck up, so obnoxious, where has all that attitude of yours gone? Fan laughed. Huangpu Tianyuan felt like crying, fighting the process with all he had, to no avail. As the dragon souls left him, his body weakened, coming back to his human form. Roar. Roars came from Fan this time, wrestling inside him for a way out. Huangpu Tianyuan grasped at his chance at victory. Haha, they aren't refined by you. You may have taken them, but they won't listen to anyone but me. Return them and I promise not to fight you again. We will split the world between us. Huangpu Tianyuan was at a disadvantage and started speaking terms. Zhuofan smiled. The world was mine to begin with. Why would I ever share it? Moreover, these earthworms, since I've pulled them out of you, do you think I can't tame them? Zhuofan's forehead revealed an azure flame, making the dragon souls fall back. Huangpu Tianyuan's eyes teared up. He had now lost even his bargaining chip. Zhuofan's tricks were that weird and insidious. Regent Estate had a hold of the dragon vein for 1,000 years yet never could get the souls to submit. And Zhuofan just showed up and they'd behave like children? Sighing, Huangpu Tianyuan showed a powerless expression of remorse as he thinned out. As the last dragon soul roared, returning dragon soul entering Zhuofan, Huangpu Tianyuan became human again, stripped of all arrogance. In another hour, Huangpu Tianyuan turned to ashes, lost in the wind. Gu Santong sneered at the empty ground and turned back to a child. He had no clue if Huangpu Tianyuan ever felt endless remorse at having messed with the father and son duo, that he dared pose before them, but with the loss of the dragon souls, despair was all those old eyes showed. It was then that the old man lost his will to live as well. Dad, I never knew you had such a trick. Is that 9 Serenities Emperor's master skill? You robbed the old guy of even his temper. Gu Santong smiled. Zhuofan cut him off. Young Sanzi, defend me while I unite the dragons. I'm breaking through. He sat cross-legged, eyes closed and cultivated. Gu Santong saw him rush and figured this had to be a rare chance for his old man. He stopped talking and was earnest in protecting him. 2 days went by, time in which Zhuofan's power grew. Going 1 layer per day, reaching the 5th layer of profound heaven stage. And with this change his body healed as well. But Huangpu Tianyuan was a peak radiant stage expert, brimming with power. Whoosh! With a bang, a black chain shot for Zhuofan's skull. Gu Santong grabbed it. Who's there? Come out. Gu Santong, you are the imperial family's divine dragon, yet you collude with traitors of the empire? Did you forget the promise you made 300 years ago? As the black smoke twisted, Shadow King with Sima Hui and Fang Qiubai made their appearance. All while Zhuofan was calmly sitting there, ignoring the world around him. Chapter 456, The Ex-Best in the World. Chapter 456, The Ex-Best in the World. Gu Santong mocked. My promise refers to keeping imperial family alive for 1,000 years. It says nothing about dogs. I'll help if I feel like it. If not, no one can make me humph. The 3 stared in shock. Check out the new big brain on the bugger. He figured out some loopholes. As to how, it didn't take them long to see that Zhuofan had something to do with it. These kinds of snappy and taunting remarks were more up Zhuofan's alley. The kid had no chance in figuring it all out by himself. The 3 turned heavy. Gu Santong was the strongest right now, but they couldn't just leave Zhuofan alone either. It would be unwise to say the least. Shadow King said, then keep your promise by destroying all of Imperial family's enemies. With Zhuofan being a national traitor, abusing his power, he is a threat to all of us. Be it as a divine dragon or just to keep your word, you must root him out, not protect him. Humph, to hell with your protection. A son looks after his old man, it's the most natural thing in the world. Sticking out his chin, Gu Santong giggled. Moreover, Dad has guaranteed that he'd leave the Imperial family alive. He wants power, not status. The trio gasped. Fang Qiubai was astonished. Young Sanzi, what did you just call him? Right, you still don't know that he's my godfather. Just try touching 1 hair of him and I promise to break your bones one by one. Gu Santong had a savage smile. Fang Qiubai was dumbstruck, a bad feeling creeping up on him. If Gu Santong only went to Zhuofan's side because of some fancy speech, they could still get him back on the straight and narrow path. Gu Santong had always been their strongest asset. But with this new relationship like a family, they had no chance. What the hell did Zhuofan use to get the kid so eager to call him dad? Imperial family had been feeding the kid for centuries, yet nothing had worked to get him closer to them. Yet Zhuofan just came along and did it like nothing. The trio was speechless. When did it all start? But recalling the big war just a few days back with Luo clan turning experts faster than flipping pancakes, the trio had to bow towards the master. Zhuofan was an expert when it came to manipulation, while also making them have a hard time facing Gu Santong right about now. Gu Santong was the best in the world for a reason. Senior, should we make a tactical retreat? Young Sanzi and Zhuofan make for the worst enemies. It's best that we report to His Majesty first. Sima Hui proposed. Fang Qiubai nodded, finding it the best choice. Shadow King was somewhat angry and reticent. Gu Santong, I used to respect you as being a man of your word, a hero. I don't resent you even in the current situation. But I never thought you'd be so despicable and wretched. Going by Zhuofan's speech, big things are happening. Even if the imperial family isn't overthrown, they'll end up as puppets. How is that any different from robbing their lands? Gu Santong, if there's still some decency left in you, you'd keep your promise and protect the imperial family's lands. Do your duty and not resort to petty tricks like reading between the lines. It is not how a man of honor conducts himself. Shadow King shouted. Gu Santong found it odd. And who are you supposed to be? I don't know you. Your creepy look, it has nothing to do with me. Haha, Gu Santong, you don't need to know. I only hope that you'll fulfill your promise. Shadow King's tone was tragic but firm. Gu Santong felt odd. The guy was speaking like an old friend, but he had never seen him in his life. With a wiggle of his nose, he got his answer. Shadow King's smell gave him a déjà vu. Who are you? Have we met? Gu Santong said. Shadow King flicked his chain at Zhuofan, top profound ranked martial art heart-piercing nebula chain. The chain split into 1,000 chains in a blink, all going after Zhuofan. The powerful aura being emanated turned everything to dust. Even the air was vibrating. Gu Santong blanked out, waking up when the chains reached Zhuofan. He jumped in between and punched. Boom. The 1,000 chains disintegrated, leaving a shimmering air around Gu Santong's trembling fist. Fang Qiubai and Sima Hui looked at Shadow King stunned. With Gu Santong around, even together the trio had no chance of harming Zhuofan. So why was Shadow King so persistent? Is he looking to be humiliated? Shadow King just stood in place, uncaring how easily his move was thwarted. He spoke again. Gu Santong, do you know me now? Gu Santong turned sad. You're still alive. I thought. Humph, alive. Shadow King mocked. Does this look alive to you? Gu Santong only had a look of sorrow. Shadow King spoke heavily. If not for your punch back then, I, being on the brink of entering ethereal stage, wouldn't have turned into a spirit puppet, into neither human nor shade. I'm filled with rage every time I think about it. But I don't hate you because you always kept your word to me. But now, I am still a man of my word. Gu Santong justified. No, you've just found a way around it, unprincipled. Shadow King snapped. Gu Santong staggered back. The other two were shocked to the core. Shadow King had been loyal to the imperial family since even before the two came to office as divine dragons. But never once knew of his history. His reprimands were the biggest clue. He was the one to trap Gu Santong in a promise 300 years ago. Gu Santong gasped, restless, to which Shadow King shouted, Didn't your godfather teach you about loyalty and justice? Are you going to turn your back on them? Gu Santong shook all over. His first godfather was his savior, teacher and mentor. He would never forget. Anyone could call him a demon or a monster, he didn't care. But to question his respect for his godfather, he could not accept. Shadow King found his words hitting something and showed a twisted smile among the black mist. The great Shadow King, the once best in Chanyu, the immemorial sage, comes back 3 centuries later to use some shoddy righteousness? Is this how a true man acts, deceiving children? Zhuofan sighed, opening his sharp eyes, looking down upon all creation with his overbearing power. He snapped his eyes on that shadow. Before speaking of promises, shouldn't you straighten yourself first? Zhuofan. Shadow King gnashed his teeth. You rotten bastard, I don't know what fancy words you've used to deceive Gu Santong, but his first godfather was a scholar, a man of principle who taught his children virtue and honor. Unlike you who leads him astray. Gu Santong, ask yourself, did your first godfather earn your respect and love, or is this despicable and vile thing is who you value more? Shadow King asked, putting Gu Santong on the spot. Shadow King was more than clear about his game, to strike at Gu Santong's heart by putting his 2 godfathers on a scale. Zhuofan walked in front of Gu Santong, rubbing his head, with a bright smile and speaking platitudes, be it your former righteous and honorable godfather, or the current despicable and repulsive one, we each have our own paths. But one thing we have in common is our love for our young Sanzi, which will never change. Gu Santong showed a bright smile. You sneaky little devil. Shadow King's cheek twitched in outrage. Chapter 457, Insidious Tongue, Insidious Eyes. Chapter 457, Insidious Tongue, Insidious Eyes. With a crafty smile, Zhuofan asked Shadow King, "Look who's talking. Luring and deceiving the young and innocent Sanzi into a back-breaking oath, does that make you a gentleman? Since you're no saint, why go around asking others to treat you like one?" "Zhuofan, I am loyal to the Empire. No amount of vilifying by a twisted lowlife can change that." Shadow King snapped, taking on an upright air, like he had the moral high ground, fearless and dauntless. Gu Santong pondered, "Dad, he took my punches back then to defend his homeland. He is loyal to his country, a hero." "Young Sanzi, I never doubted his loyalty, nor his resolve. But what is on him that makes him a gentleman? Humph, what a sick joke." Zhuofan continued, "The diehards in this world, under the pretense of loyalty, have done unspeakable things by the score. Can a loyalist then say with no shame that his back is straight, his heart is righteous, and use the same words to bind others into an oath? Ha, then let me ask you, O great Shadow King, sir, a bastion of justice, you conned an innocent child with no remorse, to become an indentured slave for imperial family for 300 years. And now you've come again using that same principle. Is this how a gentleman acts, picking on the small?" Shadow King choked, but he cooled down soon. "This is a gentleman's accord between me and Gu Santong. How can he just go back on it?" "Hardly, I only hear how a gentleman adapts to the situation, how flexible he is. You cheated a kid last time, so how can you still call yourself a gentleman? As for being an accord between gentlemen, since you're so ungentlemanlike, how does it still hold?" Zhuofan grinned. He always thought young Sanzi's promise was a load of baloney that the sage had cooked up. But young Sanzi was a child of honor, taking it to heart and never breaking his word on his own. And since the sage died in the fight 300 years ago, Zhuofan had no way to break that promise. How convenient, the creditor was still alive and kicking. Giving Zhuofan the leverage to break this oath at the seams, releasing the kid from the shackles of Tianyu's imperial family. Gu Santong was a passive listener to these two's debate, finding his old man's words sound and true, evident by that nod. Shadow King panicked and hatred festered in his heart. Gu Santong was gullible despite being around for 3 centuries. But being in constant companionship with a mastermind like Zhuofan had turned easy persuasion into an undertaking. "Gu Santong, remember our promise at my time of death, how I took 10 of your punches?" "Shut it." Shadow King took on the same manner he had last time to move Gu Santong, but Zhuofan wouldn't have it. "Sage, I may not think of you as a gentleman, but I do admire your feat 3 centuries ago. However, a man of valor does not flaunt his qualities. And you just keep on going back to it again and again, using it to lie to a child all over again, and all in the name of empty honor. Talk about shamelessness. As a divine dragon, dying for your lord and in line of duty is something I understand. It's in your job description. But to use that zealotry to bind an innocent child, humph. I've never seen a more despicable man in my life. Forget the fact that you turned into a spirit puppet. Mind you, a prick with a thick face like yours has the audacity to go on living while building up the Shadow Core, those deranged and twisted minds? Why you?" Shadow King panted, his shadowy face taking a red tint. He was so high-strung that all he could do was point at Zhuofan. Fang Qiubai and Sima Hui looked at Zhuofan in shock and gulped. They were acquainted with Zhuofan's strength time and time again, while only now did they learn of his sharp tongue. He had got this ex-expert tongue-tied in a diatribe. And since he fell short in insults and got trashed in battle, Shadow King showed a face the two had never seen before. "Senior, ease your anger and mind your health," Sima Hui advised, seeing him on the verge of collapse from rage. Shadow King pointed at Zhuofan, but all he managed to do was gnash his teeth. Zhuofan snickered. "Last but not the least, how did you know about the matter of young Sanzi's godfather? Can it be that the imperial family arranged it?" Shadow King's heart seized, his shuddering body soaked. "Haha, I'm right, isn't it? Imperial family had planned it?" Zhuofan cackled. Gu Santong looked incredulous. "Dad, what are you saying?" "Young Sanzi, I do not know what happened 3 centuries ago, but this senior sage here, through his attempt at using pretty words to cheat you again, has spilled the beans. Isn't it odd how he knew about your godfather's upright character? As I recall, the imperial family interfered after your fight with the 7 houses. Your godfather should have been killed at that point." Zhuofan's eyes took on a wild glint. Shadow King only looked at him in a deep frown. Gu Santong mulled it over. "Godfather, what does it all mean? Just tell me." "Simple really. Everything that happened to you was because they used you. It was the imperial family's plot to weaken the 7 houses and reduce their position. Zhuo Fan had a twisted smile. When I met the emperor, he said that he had kept an eye on me ever since the hubbub back in Drifting Flower City. That's normal, as every ruler would do when there's an event in their backyard, to the point that they'd even figure out the source of it. But don't you find it even remotely odd how the emperor back then only acted when you had half the nation in chaos? Haha, it's because it was premeditated. The way I see it, ever since you pilfered the house's ingredient stash, your every move was under imperial family's supervision. Also that you and the houses would fight it off to weaken them. If anything, your meeting with Godfather was also part of imperial family's plan to re-educate you and then have the 7 houses kill his entire family. What? Gu Santong clenched his fists, his eyes red. Godfather, is that true? Bullshit, Gu Santong, don't believe his lies. Shadow King roared. The imperial family's losses were also heavy at the time. If it were imperial family's ploy, they wouldn't burn themselves with it. There's no one so cruel to themselves. Haha, yeah, no one is that cruel to themselves. But you forget one thing: what man proposes, heaven disposes. There's not a single man out there who can control everything. From just a simple mistake, everything could unravel. Young Sanzi, this is clearly the situation. Zhuo Fan continued, all humans are good at birth. Young Sanzi had just entered these lands and didn't know right from wrong. That is why he stole those ingredients, inciting calamity. But his strength kept him alive even when badly wounded. This caught your attention. But you were wrong about one thing: young Sanzi's wound was because he was still new at fighting, making an erroneous estimate of his strength and deciding to use him. That's where his godfather came in. Whether he was your man or one you placed, he was young Sanzi's teacher either way, showing him a life of honor. Then you drew the 7 houses over to kill him, planting the seed of revenge. Zhuo Fan described it like he was there, but this was only an excuse. Young Sanzi was your center stage puppet. Even if he was too weak, you just help him fight the 7 houses from the shadows and let him take the fall. It must have come as a total shock, I wager, when the enraged young Sanzi turned invincible, trampling even the likes of the 7 houses. You were happier than ever, I'm sure. But all good things must come to an end. Young Sanzi's power was outrageous, out of your control. So when you entered the stage for some spring cleaning, you couldn't do anything and suffered heavy losses just the same. That's what being too smart for your own good does. Where the enemy loses 1,000 and you lose 800. Zhuo Fan sighed. Shadow King was sweating buckets, fear creeping in. Zhuo Fan does not just have an insidious tongue, but his eyes are damn revolting too. Is he even human to figure it all out so fast? Shadow King remained silent. Only Gu Santong shivered now and then, the rage boiling inside. Chapter 458, Parting. Chapter 458, Parting. Is what Dad just said true? Gu Santong stared Shadow King dead in the eye. Shadow King would never admit it in his life or second life, choosing instead to fall back to nitpicking. Those are just random guesses and lies. There's no way he knows what happened all those years ago. Right, I don't, and all I said were mere speculations. But even so, it does feel true, doesn't it? Especially the part you blurted out. Zhuo Fan grinned. Gu Santong asked Shadow King, how did you know about my godfather's character? Everything in this world belongs to the Emperor. Of course we knew everything about you. Is it that odd? Forcing the calm to stay, Shadow King preached. Zhuo Fan grinned, Senior Sage, what a perfect memory you have. Let's forget for a moment the relationship he had with young Sanzi, when his godfather was but a simple scholar. Yet you had the perfect mind to remember his character from 300 years ago. I didn't think you cared, haha. Shadow King clenched his fists. Zhuo Fan didn't even have an iota of proof, but his every question was perfect, jabbing right where it hurt. He might as well have said, experts like him who took commoners like ants would mind some nobody? To say nothing of remembering their character 300 years later. Were peak experts nowadays that bored? Who the hell would want such pain? The only plausible explanation was the meticulous planning involved in weakening the 7 houses. How could the head divine dragon of that time ever forget such a critical operation? Shadow King took a deep breath. Gu Santong understood it all and the hurting began. That meant his godfather was only following orders, his care for him was fake. The only person he trusted in those 300 years was planted behind smoke and mirrors. He was, for all intents and purposes, alone. Ah. Gu Santong roared his grief at the heavens. Zhuo Fan sighed, feeling sorry for the kid. He never wanted to look into what happened back then and would rather think of another way to break the vow. But Shadow King just had to hang the promise over Gu Santong's head. So what if Gu Santong had to defend the imperial family? He could just replace them as long as Gu Santong didn't interfere. But now, as the mist scattered and the truth came to light, young Sanzi had lost his most cherished moments. As his second godfather, Zhuofan felt his pain. It began with using Gu Santong for his own schemes, but the kid had grown on him. Watching his own son in pain would bring any father grief. Gu Santong, your godfather was one of us. He was loyal to the crown, to the imperial family, and died with no regrets. As his godson, you should follow his footsteps and defend the Nat Dash. Enough. Shadow King tried to use the truth this time to switch Gu Santong around, but the kid was too enraged. Liars, you are all liars. Shadow King cried inside. Gu Santong's fire burned hotter and hotter and he might explode any second. He had assessed Gu Santong's strength over the centuries. Even with feeding him junk food, no one could beat him. Once a fight broke out, the trio would be left for dead. 3 Grand Peak Radiant Stage experts fighting a mere third layer of Radiant Stage child looked more like mice scurrying away. You lied to me for 3 whole centuries. Thump. Gu Santong stomped his way toward them, leaving behind burning imprints. The 3 gulped in fright. The flames came from the burning of Yuan Qi. But any cultivator worth his salt could do that. While the kid's Yuan Qi flame still burned way outside his body. It proved that his Yuan Qi was of incredibly high concentration. They wrote Gu Santong off as a muscle-bound thug, only to find the kid's Yuan Qi a monster in its own right. It only makes Gu Santong more ferocious and deadly. The trio's hearts sank with every step forward. Young Sanzi, the world is filled with false truths and covered truths, with the genuine article hidden in the middle. Those events 3 centuries ago may be lies, but that does not mean your godfather didn't care for you. Humans aren't like plants, especially those weak cultivators. Who is to say the long days spent around you didn't evoke genuine feelings of fatherhood? Zhuofan spoke as Gu Santong's aura stifled the trio in his approach. Gu Santong halted, turning back puzzled. Dad, you mean, godfather treated me like a real son? It should be, since that's how the devious and demonic me treats you. How couldn't that mortal feel love just the same? If he hadn't, then it would make my demonic path a waste to not even compare to a mortal's. Ha, Zhuofan nodded. Gu Santong was taken back to those memories and his power surge ebbed. Zhuofan turned to the trio with a shout, you 3 listen up and listen well. I and young Sanzi will let this go, putting this matter to a rest. You don't mention this again and we won't look to settle the debt of cheating young Sanzi either. But from this point on, young Sanzi and you have no ties. He is a divine dragon no longer, and neither your national guardian. Am I clear? Gu Santong looked from Zhuofan to the 3. Shadow King frowned, totally not wanting it to be clear. But Gu Santong could jump them at any time. Did he have the luxury to argue past promises? Keeping his life was already godsent. Sending Gu Santong to Zhuofan's side is the biggest loss yet. Shadow King lamented inside and nodded, fine, the oath is now lifted. We will meet again. Shadow King flew away with Sima Hui right behind. Only Fang Qiubai was still out of it. Zhuofan, with your style, shouldn't you take this chance to rob our lives for your interest? Why? Humph, you think I'm the type to let you go out of the goodness of my heart? Haha, I'm doing it for young Sanzi. Zhuofan mocked. Fang Qiubai turned a lost look to Gu Santong, then exclaimed. Gu Santong was in the worst pain of his life, on the brink of sinking into hatred and revenge. Even after wiping the floor with them, he'd still be consumed by it, the grief becoming a dangerous threat to his cultivation. It would halt his progress for all his life, bringing nothing but more pain and suffering. But through Zhuofan's speech he released the kid from his oath, bringing closure to that ill affair and opening the way to the future. Fang Qiubai smiled, Great Steward Zhua, isn't it easier to control those hellbent on revenge? Yet a great mind like you missed such a prime opportunity. I find that you're a savage only with the rest of the world, while quite considerate to your people. And what's that got to do with you? Zhuofan raised an eyebrow. Fang Qiubai shook his head, nothing whatsoever. But do not forget your brotherhood with the third prince. If he doesn't live up to it, you don't have to either. You can see from how he is that he has never been unworthy to you. While you, Zhuofan cursed inside. God's blasted son of a... He got young Sanzi's chains off but he forgot about them. What the hell was wrong with him? Tying the knot with the tubby? I gotta fight the imperial family yet I can't do anything to him. Oh, right, I was still weak back then and was looking for a shoulder to lean on. He found the reason quite fast and scratched his nose. Fang Qiubai smiled. Zhuofan, I finally know how you treat others. Rest easy, the third prince will never go against you. And a word of advice, His Majesty's plan is meticulous. The entire scene is under his complete control. Be careful. Oh, you're a divine dragon, yet also, Zhuofan gave a smile. The two's hearts were in sync. Fang Qiubai continued, young Sanzi, our time together hasn't been pleasant but I am really happy for you. You're lucky to have Zhuofan. He cares the most about his people, haha. Fang Qiubai left after saying that. Gu Santong blinked and turned to Zhuofan with a brilliant smile. Zhuofan patted his head. The two's relationship grew stronger. Gu Santong even thought that Zhuofan was greater than his first godfather. Chapter 459, Little Master. Chapter 459, Little Master. Dad, haven't you combined the dragons yet? Why are you only in the 5th layer of Profound Heaven stage? That earthworm was a peak radiant stage expert. 2 flashes crossed the blue sky, with one flapping its blue wings and wearing an evil smile. The other was the most adorable little child in a cute red glow. Gu Santong didn't understand Zhuofan's good mood, but the latter laughed, haha, cultivation comes in slow and steady steps. I may have taken the whole dragon vein, but it's not so easy to refine them, or I'd be in the ethereal stage by now. It wouldn't benefit my future cultivation either. My foundation in this life has never been better. I want to reach further and beyond anyone else, and not tie myself down with transitory riches and fame. In any case, cultivation has no shortcuts. Or the faster your path, the shorter it is. Zhuofan sighed. Gu Santong nodded, but that earthworm sure was hard to beat. Even after kicking him around in my main form, he just wouldn't die. We shouldn't have given him the Bodhi root. No, we had to. Zhuofan shook his head. 9 Dragons' diamond body was the basis of his confidence in igniting the war. If he hadn't moved, then neither would the Emperor. And if the Emperor stood still, the court would be the same festering cesspool, working against us in the long run. We needed a good catalyst. In vernacular, as long as we crossed swords, the Emperor would only then take his court through spring cleaning. Using the civil war that engulfed the whole nation as our righteous excuse to replace his rule, we can then make our claim. Gu Santong frowned. Dad, why go through all this trouble? With the 2 of us, invincible, we can flatten the imperial capital now that Rotten Oath is gone as well. We'll see then if those cowards dare to mess with us. Oh, young Sanzi, this is why you lost the last time around. I dare say, even without the sage to cheat you, you still couldn't have taken hold of the empire. Zhuofan laughed. If your motives aren't pure, there's nothing to gain. Without a good excuse, no one would listen to you even if you take the nation for yourself. Besides, what's a country if not a vast farmland? If you want them to listen to your orders and farm, you need a grand purpose to have them all come bearing these resources at your feet. Or even if you are the strongest, with such a large domain, are you going to mine or harvest the stuff yourself? Speaking of Tianyu's emperor, he has had a steady flow of resources coming year in year out. With these as incentives, many experts gather under him. That's why every single ruler pays attention to righteousness, to justify their claim. Or even if you're godlike, it'd be hard to take all that stuff by yourself and frankly, it's just not worth it. Gu Santong paused and nodded. He recalled the time he went looking for ingredients, the bitterness of not finding anything good even in a month. But the 7 houses were loaded, offering him a 3-square meal once he swiped them clean, of course. Didn't they get so much stuff from their vassals? Gu Santong now got an idea of what being upright meant, stealing everything in broad daylight, and with a smile too. The more he thought about it, the more he realized that the imperial family and the 7 houses were more insidious and vile than him who just took a tiny bit to fill his belly. Young Sanzi, you must now know more skills, right? Zhuofan asked. Gu Santong beamed. Yep, uncle developed my innate strength. I can use the Qilin shield and return to my innate form. The last one is Soaring Fist, but I'm still practicing it. Zhuofan nodded. Vaulting Kunping hasn't shown any ill will so far, and was earnest in helping young Sanzi discover his strength. He thought about it and was relieved. Boom. Explosions came from afar, drawing the two's attention. Just half a mile out, a lofty city was under heavy siege. The glittering barriers around the city shimmered as dozens of radiant stage experts launched their attacks. The city itself had its own team of radiant stage experts holding the arrays, hard and dauntless like a mountain. That's Regent Estate's home, Caged Dragon City? Gu Santong perked up. Grinning, Zhuofan nodded. After a casual week-long flight, we've finally made it. Elder Chiu and the rest are besieging it by the looks of it. Hee, I once took my shot at it back in the day, but it was just so tough that it took me a whole day to flatten it. They won't breach it in their lifetime. Regent Estate's home has a total of 385 barriers, plus 10 fifth-grade arrays. Not even 1,000,000 men can do it. Gu Santong grew smug at his achievement. Zhuofan shook his head. Young Sanzi, they'd die of shame if they heard you. It's not my fault if they ask. I just gotta tell them. Of course, but do it in style. That's how father and son operate, ha. Zhuofan laughed. Gu Santong laughed as well, catching on. Meanwhile, Chiu Yanhai and his wife were in the air before the city and in a deep frown. Elder Chiu, it's not working. Caged Dragon City's defense is too tough. A figure reported. Chiu Yanhai knew him to be a surrendered Radiant Stage Elder and his face fell. Won't work? It's been 10 days now yet you couldn't break one barrier. We'd much sooner kick the bucket before breaching it. Are you perhaps still thinking of your old life and slacking off? No, never, how could we? Ever since Luo clan took us in, we've cut all ties. Just that Caged Dragon City is a tough nut to crack. The man's face fell. Chiu Yanhai was outraged. Beat it? If you don't punch through and Steward comes after my skin for it, I'll take it out on all of you. The guy ducked his head, returning to attack the city scared like he was. Chiu Yanhai was left panting behind, watching the siege in the distance with a hard look. Xue Qingjian sighed. This city won't go down so easily. Should we use the life and death art? Absolutely not. Grandmother shot her down. Elder Xue with elderly back in Wingay City to recover. You two are the only pillars here to intimidate the experts inside. But with the life and death art taking too much of your Yuan Qi and with Lung Wuchang's sharp mind, we may fall for his tricks and end up defeated. Hey Biddy, what do you mean by that? You take us brothers for nothing, the demonic cultivator hero quartet? Violent demon butted in. Without these geezers, you still have the four of us. Not to worry, you may go and die to your heart's content. Yep, the others cheered. Xue Qingjian glared. You four shits must mean for you to die first, right? Veiled Dragon Pavilion and Sword Marquis Abode's men shook their heads. These four pygmies were strong but missing a screw or more. How the Luo clan could handle these idiots was beyond them. If the power couple fell, they'd never accept these four as the next in line to lead the siege even if their lives depended on it, which it technically did. But with that impenetrable city in front of them, all anyone could do was sigh. Amidst the conflict, a laughter came. I had thought you'd have whacked those shrimps by now. But I see you've been waiting for me to take over. Everyone lit up and looked in the distance. Zhuofan? Their cheering was cut short as they saw the dreaded figure hidden behind, invincible scamp, Gu Santong. Zhuofan, Gu Santong is still after you. Long Kuei pointed behind Zhuofan in fear. But Zhuofan just stood there with an ineffable smile. All of Luo clan's elders bowed. Steward Zhua. Then they turned to Gu Santong making a 90 degrees down angle. Little Master. What? The title had everyone stare in space from shock and awe. Chapter 460, Breach. Chapter 460, Breach. A Little Master? They looked at one another, each more puzzled than the next. What's the strongest divine dragon doing, not chasing Zhuofan and instead getting acquainted with the Luo clan? By the looks of that flawless bow, they're pretty close, even calling him Little Master. Zhuofan grinned, pulling Gu Santong in front. Haha, you didn't know? Let me make the proper introductions. Gu Santong, my godson. What? Everyone stared at him with dull and blank looks. That little explanation was enough to justify the Little Master title. With his position, calling the kid a kind of young master was totally within his purview. What got the crowd baffled though was, how did the demon Gu Santong end up as his godson? No one could tame the freak for 3 centuries, but Zhuofan just showed up and it was a done deal? Everyone made strange faces at Zhuofan. Steward Zhua, when did you and Gu Santong have the fortune to get so close? Grandmother probed. Zhuofan smiled. Around 8 years ago, me and young Sanzi traded blows leading to us becoming the father and son duo we are today, haha. Oh, I see. Grandmother nodded. She used to wonder why they fought a mean fight back in the Imperial Palace. It was now obvious from their close relationship. And since they knew each other before it, that battle was just a farce. And by connecting the dots with the imperial family's attitude for the 7 houses, grandmother smelled a conspiracy. Grandmother turned grave. Steward Zhua, what have you planned after this war? Zhua Fan praised, smart, and smiled, don't worry, I have everything set up. Grandmother nodded. Only now did she have an inkling as to what was with those series of strange events so far. Why the imperial family broke it off with Luo clan over a mere marriage proposal. Why instead of keeping the 7 houses in check, it turned a deaf ear to the regent estate's blind ambition. With Zhua Fan's shindig at the imperial palace as the start, it had already exposed the imperial family's intention of clashing with the houses. Zhua Fan didn't just lash out either, having seen through it. The way he pulled away Gu Santong, their great general, proved it. Not even the emperor knew of this by his behavior back then. Hiding such a relation for 5 years was a killer move. It all made sense. The imperial family wants domestic peace by eliminating any dissidents. Zhua Fan had long since entertained the thought of taking on the world, and regent estate used this chaos to expand. Each with their own goal, all at the low price of the other houses, out of the loop and toyed with like fodder. Now that they were in Zhua Fan's boat, they were stuck with him and his orders. That was the purpose behind her question regarding Zhua Fan's plans after defeating Regent Estate. His answer laid her worries to rest. Veiled Dragon Pavilion and Sword Marquis Abode's people were still clueless. Steward Zhua, what's become of Huangpu Tianyuan? With such a huge commotion in the nation, they were all concerned about the 9 Dragons Diamond Body Freak. Long Yifi couldn't fight the question. Everyone looked on hopefully. Zhua Fan snickered, do you need to ask? With young Sanzi's help, he's dead as a doornail. Everyone released a breath. They figured it might be so. 9 Dragons Diamond Body was a freak, but he didn't stand a chance against Gu Santong and Zhua Fan teaming up. They only wanted confirmation. They looked at the duo with more praise. No one can top them in Tianyu. Luo clan had shot from a down in the dumps 3rd-rate clan to higher than the 7 houses in their legacies in just a decade. They all admired Zhua Fan, for he was the one to bring it all to pass. Steward Zhua, I have failed you. We've been attacking Caged Dragon City for 10 days but can't do anything to it. Qiu Yanhai sighed. Zhua Fan glanced at Gu Santong. The kid let out a theatrical sigh. 10 days and no results. You sure are useless. Guess this young master and my dad will have to show you how it's done. Qiu Yanhai's face twitched. Getting told off by a kid, even if a freak, bruised his pride. The others sighed. Like father, like son. The ever-stubborn invincible scamp took to the ill-reputed act of showing off like fish to water. Zhua Fan laughed, ruffling the kid's hair in pride. My son is a hero. If young Sanzi doesn't show it, how can he be called my son, ha? Under the expectant gazes of the excited audience, Gu Santong and Zhua Fan entered the play. Zhua Fan's right eye flashed golden and Gu Santong's adorable fist surged with rampant power. Look, someone's attacking. A radiant stage expert from within the city said. The one next to him dissed him, lighten up, no matter who comes, we have the 8 overseers watching the heaven-locking chain array. Not even the emperor can breach it. Oh no, that's Zhua Fan. What? People panicked at the familiar creepy smile and their hearts seized. Zhua Fan's presence meant their estate lord. Zhua Fan's shout traveled to every corner of Caged Dragon City, like a demon archon, striking fear in all. Divine Eye of the Void's 2nd stage, Void Annihilation. Soaring fist splitting heaven. Gu Santong shouted, throwing his delicate fist into the air. Boom. Something shot through the air, breaking 300+ barriers like nothing. Then came Gu Santong's outrageous punch, taking out the arrays. Rumble. Like a flood, the array operating radiant stage experts spat blood and collapsed lifeless. Caged Dragon City shook like never before, reaching the brink of collapse. Bam. A door slammed open, revealing a regent estate's elder rushing in. Sir Lung, our defenses are breached. What do we do? Lung Wuchang sat in his seat with closed eyes. What can we do? Surrender. Our only hope fell with Estate Lord. Since I heard Zhua Fan just now, it only means Estate Lord. Even if this array is yet to fall, holding out now has no meaning. That, the elder shook his head, crestfallen. If not even the resourceful Lung Wuchang could come up with something, all that remained was for him to send the order to lay down their arms. The House Lords heard it and were totally against it. Zhua Fan was their bitter enemy, how could they just give up? Yen Bagong in particular riddled with 100 poisons. The Grand Hall Lord lost everything when a traitor defeated him in his area of expertise, poisons. And now he'd go down as a captive? How could he stand for it? What were they supposed to do anyway? Their boss was the strongest regent estate. And since it had capitulated, their opinions hardly mattered. I went with Regent Estate because I wanted to get revenge on Zhuofan for destroying my home. But now, even the Regent Estate lies defeated. Heaven has forsaken me, Yuan Shan sighed. The rest were feeling just the same. Meanwhile, the attackers watched the father-son duo do in an instant what they couldn't in 10 days. All were bug-eyed, some slack-jawed at the unbelievable power that existed in this world. It was like there were two Gu Santongs. There might not be another pair like them. Zhuofan's order came. Capture Regent Estate and bring me Lung Wuchang alive. Chapter 461, Scary. Chapter 461, Scary. Roar. Luo clan's side surged with newfound courage in their assault on Caged Dragon City. Its allies were fueled by rage to settle a debt of blood. You scum ruined my legacy. Now I'm here to kill you all. Ha. A bummer they didn't get to taste blood though. From the broken walls of the city, people came out with lowered heads, Lung Wuchang in the lead. He was holding a frail branch and something white flapping at the tip. Steward Zhuo, Qiu Yanhai began. Zhuofan squinted at their deflated and crestfallen looks, having lost all the will to fight. The House Lords however still had some defiance. Zhuofan waved, surround them. Understood. Qiu Yanhai had dozens of Radiant Stage experts form a tight circle, driving fear into the men. Lung Wuchang gave a small nod in assurance and shouted, Steward Zhuo, it's your victory and my loss. What's with that tone? It's like you expect there to be a next time. Zhuofan showed a prideful evil smile. Lung Wuchang sighed, never again, I have completely lost to you and would never dare to face you again. I only wish to know if that road pass you gave me is still valid. My word is my bond. Zhuofan smiled. Lung Wuchang sighed, the weight off his chest, and bowed, I wish then to have Regent Estate survivors under your care. All were in complete shock. Grandmother more so. Luo clan had a power beyond the mere head of the 8 houses, being in an invincible position. And if Regent Estate's experts hopped in, it would become a behemoth. Despite Luo clan's allies, they felt the danger growing in direct proportion with its power. Like the case of 2 mountains side by side, your might may be a cut below the neighbors, but the guy would sure have his eye on it. And as this ambition only gets bigger and bigger, you'd find at some point that no one would even throw you a glance, nothing more than a pebble to step on. Luo clan grew at unimaginable speeds, like the whole world moved to help it. It was safe to say the time would soon come when it would find its 3 allies mere rejects. There would be no allies then. They wouldn't be worth even as a snack for this monstrosity. The House Lords saw the real danger, that they would be worth less than these prisoners here. And all began cooking up plans to keep their spot. Zhuofan snickered inside, while a dangerous glint from his eyes landed on the captives. Sir Lung, are you sure they want to surrender? Lung Wuchang nodded, absolutely. Then listen up. Seal your cultivation, all of you. Zhuofan grinned. The reaction was unanimous shock. It was the same as ending up as a fish in a barrel. What cultivator out there would ever do such a thing? In their confusion, Lung Wuchang frowned, Steward Zhuo. You're prisoners of war and of great power. If you don't seal yourself, how can I take you in? You might run on our way back. Zhuofan mocked. Lung Wuchang was the first to do it. The others had no choice but to follow. The House Lords were even more unwilling, but the savage mass of eyes on them forced them to. Now that all of them had not a drop of Yuan Qi in them, Zhuofan shouted, kill. Everyone froze, not just the captives but even the surrounding Radiant Stage experts. Didn't they give up? They even obeyed you, so why kill him? Are my ears acting up again? Qiu Yanhai did not hesitate to slam a sealed Radiant Stage expert into the ground, dead. He barked, what are you standing around for? You heard Steward Zhuo kill them. They all shuddered, so I did hear right. It's for real. Everyone joined the culling of defenseless Radiant Stage experts with extreme prejudice. None knew why, just that Zhuofan's orders were law, a do-or-die thing. Wails of agony, curses and roars colored the skies as the blood of the powerless Regent Estate dyed their city red. Zhuofan, you lowlife scum double-crosser. I will haunt you forever. Yuan Shan roared. Zhuofan's tone was flat, You couldn't stand me alive and now you won't as a dead man either? Humph, I read too much for you to scare me. Lung Wuchang, you sold your honor to destroy us with Zhuofan. Regent estate has been good to you for decades, yet you show not 1 ounce of remorse, throwing us all to the dogs? One venerable cursed. Lung Wuchang begged, Steward Zhuo W. They're now yours, a big help and not a thorn. Oh really? Zhuofan grinned, Sir Lung, you're an intelligent man here and can see why they surrendered. They did it for themselves, not for me. Haha, I don't take in just any stranger either. My so-called captives are lured in with promises. There's a give and take agreement between us. While these guys, ha ha ha. Zhuofan mocked. Lung Wuchang's ears rang with the constant wails of the dying, but these are human beings. You can't be so ruthless. They may still hold true to their old master, but with time and training. I don't have time. Zhuofan cut him off, you're clearer than most about the current situation. The winner will have to face off the imperial family. Do you believe we can get along so well in these circumstances, that I can use these captives, Lung Wuchang? Wouldn't you fear a revolt? Humph, never taken prisoners before a battle. That is the law. Lung Wuchang, are you unreasonable or still hold loyalties to your old master to make such a rash decision? If you'd have breached the encirclement, there'd still be some experts surviving, but now, Zhuofan patted Lung Wuchang's shoulder with a savage look. Lung Wuchang closed his eyes and sighed. He knew Zhuofan was ruthless, but he still. The curses and wails never ceased, bringing pain and sorrow to his heart. Too greedy, Sir Lung, that's what you are. You wanted to save them all but have doomed them instead. A mastermind needs a collected mind, not let himself be swayed by emotions. You've been a mastermind your entire life, so why make such an elementary mistake now? Take it as a lesson for your tenure in Luo clan, to never stoop to such gross dereliction of duty. Steward Zhuo. Zhuofan soaked in the mesmerizing echoes of agony as he dished out cynicism by the gallon. Lung Wuchang had a limit though, didn't you give me a pass? Why do you want my men? A pass is, by definition, singular and for a mastermind. Now who would you have in mind? Zhuofan took out a bloodworm from his gourd, the one who eats this lives and the rest die. Choose. Lung Wuchang shuddered, holding the bloodworm with a trembling hand. He looked back at the genocide with fear and sadness. Save me? With their cultivation sealed, none could escape, only scramble around in the chaos. Eyes turned to Lung Wuchang here and then, everyone filled with dread and pleading. Sir Lung, who do you want to save? Zhuofan grinned. Lung Wuchang just stood there, torn as the men grew fewer and fewer. When the final one hit the bloody mud, his mind was still blank, the bloodworm wiggling in his hand. He brought his hand up and swallowed. Zhuofan cackled, didn't you choose yourself in the end? Was that so hard? Zhuofan, you're a hellspawn. Lung Wuchang gnashed his teeth, his eyes bloodshot. Zhuofan laughed, I thought you knew by now. Is it that odd? Besides, everyone around knows my handiwork by now. Everyone gulped on cue, not making a peep. All they had was sympathy for Lung Wuchang, for a fellow prisoner. Such was the fate of the grand unwanted contriver Lung Wuchang, the one who toyed with others' lives. Zhuofan is scary. Chapter 462, Crisis in the Imperial Capital. Chapter 462, Crisis in the Imperial Capital. Among the rubble and ruins, cries of suffering and pain echoed. Lung Wuchang's forehead was riddled with pulsing veins, flopping around like a fish out of water. The freshly gained turncoats circled him in fear and shock. So this is the end of all who take bloodworms. They vowed to be extra careful from now on, lest they end up like that. All the new recruits were shivering and soaked in sweat. Zhuofan went about his business, sending the Luo clan to killing, pillaging and desecrating. The usual. He sure earned big this time. Regent Estate was the boss of houses for a damn good reason. It had many times more corpses than the other 6 combined. His plan of reaching the 100,000 war puppets quota looked mighty promising. It was all worth it going to war with the Regent Estate. Steward Zhuo, and my surrender is sincere. Is this really necessary? Lung Wuchang shouted, getting all eyes on Zhuofan. Common sense tells us Lung Wuchang ought to be welcomed with respect. So why? Sipping on his tea, laid back in his comfy chair, his reply was a beaming smile. Oh, Sir Lung, you only have yourself to blame. I did give you a Luo clan pass, but what did you do? Threaten me with hostages. Haha, I am quite the petty man and your act cut your pass in half. So after shaping you up for, let's say, 3 full days we will speak terms. Just for that. Lung Wuchang felt like crying. Steward Zhua, you told me taking your people was enough. I was still Regent Estate steward and had to consider its interests. That was only natural. How can you? Zhua Fan smiled. True, I did say that. But did I also ask you to plot against me, against your future lord? So you see, punishment is in order for your inflexible ways. And just so I won't forget, keep your excuses to yourself. Cashing in the pass will still come down to my decision, haha. Lung Wuchang felt as if he had boarded a pirate ship and felt like crying dry tears. I can overlook you killing Regent Estate's captives. But you would torment even me, a homeless old man? The rest sighed, but the power couple. They were chipper inside. These newbies are a bunch of softies, even Lung Wuchang. We had no grudge with Steward Zhua yet still went through a world of pain back then. Now this guy starts preaching reason to Steward Zhua? His torment ought to be increased by 2 days. Big brother Zhua, Sir Lung is on our side now. Why not just let it go? He still looked after us while we were captive in Regent Estate. Luo Yunhai came forward to plead Lung Wuchang's case out of pity. Lung Wuchang's eyes lit up, grasping at straws. Zhua Fan cut him off though. No, he had committed a capital offense. Punishment must be dished out. But since clan head has asked, I can reduce it to 2 days. Heart sinking, Lung Wuchang looked at Luo Yunhai with big eyes for more. Luo Yunhai's second pleading only got a dissing wave from Zhua Fan. But he got a wink to go someplace quiet. Yunhai, did you really believe I was doing this out of some petty vendetta? The two walked as Zhua Fan transmitted. Yunhai was puzzled. Why else? Don't I know you, big brother Zhua? You've never been a compassionate guy. Haha, true, I guess I am petty. Though, it depends on the person. This old coot is on our side now and I won't have the time to mess with him. Then why? Luo Yunhai asked. Zhua Fan smiled watching the ever-tumbling and wailing Lung Wuchang. This guy's mind is arrogant and scheming. Once in the Luo clan he will hold a high position. But before that happens I need to smooth those rough edges and hammer in his station. Or I fear you will one day be overthrown. One day. Big brother Zhua, won't I have you? Luo Yunhai felt uneasy. Zhua Fan sighed. I will be honest with you. I am leaving. 3 years ago I made a deal with the demon scheming sect to join them. At that time you will be truly alone. The elders are strong and stubborn, but after being alongside for so long, I can rest easy with them. But the fresh meat they needed to be beaten into them. Big brother Zhua, Luo Yunhai choked, unable to accept. Zhua Fan smiled his carefree smile. I cannot break my deal with the demon scheming sect, or Luo clan will end up suffering. But rest assured, before I go, everything will be in place. Being a head of a clan is not much different from being a lord of a nation. It's all about being fake and testing the waters. I had to accept your plea just now or your name would be cut down. When I'm gone you'll have to find another Mina to replace me. Some things you can't do yourself even if you want to, understand? Luo Yunhai pondered and nodded. Zhua Fan smiled brighter. Steward Zhua. Grandmother and the other 2 house lords came over flustered. Bad news. There's an army coming at us from everywhere. We are surrounded. It looks to be Marshal Dugu's army. Godfather? Luo Yunhai jerked. Zhua Fan smiled. Oh, Marshal couldn't have picked a better timing. He truly lives up to his name as God of War. Big brother Zhua, I've been in the Dugu army for 5 years. I know its strengths better than anyone. We may have more experts, but 50,000 can't stem the tide of soldiers. If Godfather is present, there must be 1 million of them out there. We will suffer heavy losses if we clash. Luo Yunhai sighed. The other 3 turned a nervous look at Zhua Fan. Zhua Fan merely waved. Forget about them and keep desecrating. Take them as scenery. What? No one got a whit about what went on in Zhua Fan's head, who simply smiled confidently. In the commanding tent, Dugu Zhantian and his tigers debriefed the situation around a map. Zhua Fan is the strongest. We will flank him from the east and south, while harassing him from the west and prepare an ambush in the north. In a war of attrition we will have him in 5 months at most. As for the rest, they are nothing, a loose team. They don't pose us any threat. Old Third and Old Fourth will take them down without worry. The 4 tigers of Tianyu nodded at Dugu Zhantian's plan. Dugu Lin sighed. Marshal, are we really going to capture Old Fifth? They already lost their clan once. Pain laced Dugu Zhantian's eyes for the briefest moment before resolve set in. A soldier's duty is to obey. His Majesty wants Zhuo Fan. Luo clan has harbored him, and since he destroyed the 7 houses and plans to fight for the right to rule these lands, it is unacceptable. Yunhai may be my godson, but duty is above one's family. The 4 tigers of Tianyu's hearts sank, shaking their heads. Report. A soldier burst in and got on his knee. Marshal, Luo clan scouts have discovered our fake encirclement. Haha, in war, truth hides behind smoke as do lies blend in with the truth. I've let them see it on purpose so they will panic. What about Zhuo Fan? Dugu Zhantian's eyes lit up. The soldier stammered, Marshal, they've shown no reaction. They're still pillaging Cage Dragon City as if. What? Dugu Zhantian barked. As if we weren't even here. The soldier lowered his red face. Dugu Zhantian laughed harder. Good, very good, Zhuo Fan. You're truly ruthless. You saw my flag yet think I am beneath you, not worthy of your attention? Already consider yourself the lord of these lands, is that it? Pull up camp and advance on Cage Dragon City. I will see for myself what Zhuo Fan will do against my invincible army. Dugu Zhantian shouted orders. The 4 tigers of Tianyu sighed again. Another soldier burst into the tent, presenting a jade slip. Marshal, Imperial Capital summon. His Majesty's edict. Startled, Dugu Zhantian yanked the jade and read it. What is it, Marshal? The 4 tigers of Tianyu asked. Dugu Zhantian's face darkened, then he took a deep breath. Bad news? Imperial Capital is in trouble. His Majesty needs our help. Chapter 463, Killings in Imperial Palace. Chapter 463, Killings in Imperial Palace. What? The 4 looked at each other in shock. How can this be? Didn't His Majesty send another edict just a while ago to destroy the traitors? Why this sudden cry for help? Dugu Lin found it unnatural, changing his mind after just a few days, and we are so far away. It only proves that the imperial capital is in such peril not even His Majesty can ignore it. Dugu Zhantian grew angry. The Jade says old Zhuge is on the move, with 200,000 troops outside the city. We have no time to lose. We're withdrawing. Dugu Zhantian shouted orders. Dugu Lin had more to say, but the marshal's mind was made. And since they were brothers with Luo Yunhai, avoiding a bloodbath was for the best. In under an hour the Dugu army was on the move, gone like the wind. Luo clan scouts came back with the report. Steward Zhuo, your ineffable machinations got Dugu army to retreat. Grandmother gave him a thumbs up. Long Yifei and Xie Xiaofeng were elated too. Zhuo Fan could even bore down on the mind of the undefeated army god. He was awesome. Luo Yunhai frowned. Wait, this is not per Godfather's character. He acts with speed and force. Once the army is on the move, it won't withdraw for any reason. Just what could have happened? Long Yifei took it in stride. Maybe the marshal had a change of heart, going to His Majesty to plead your case. No, orders to a soldier are a sacred duty to perform. Godfather cares for Luo clan, but he would first capture us and present us to the palace before asking for leniency. He will never fall back like this. Luo Yunhai shook his head. Gu Santong mocked, Humph, who cares? It's all the same to me. Be it 1 million or 3 million, it's just numbers this fist of mine will have to smash. What? The others had to force a nod. Everyone knew about Invincible Scamp's ridiculously strong arm, that not even Dugu army could topple. Luo Yunhai shook his head. Senior Gu Santong, I know you're amazing, but Dugu army is no weakling. To deal with your brute force, Dugu army has many formations with that in mind. They will leave a division to keep you busy while finishing us off. Gu Santong snorted and rolled his eyes. Zhuo Fan finally spoke. This no longer concerns us. We'd best move Regent Estates goods back to Wingay City post-haste. While we don't have Dugu Zhantian's army to worry about. Luo Yunhai asked, Big brother Zhuo, why do you say that? Dugu Zhantian is a master of war, yet also a lion caged by Tianyu. Zhuo Fan stood up and walked away. Eliminate the tool once it's done its job. This has been in practice since time immemorial. The emperor is on the move. Everyone frowned. Hadn't he been doing that until now? In the imperial palace, the emperor sat at his desk holding a jade slip. Zhuo Fan and Gu Santong became kin, and the latter even sided with him completely. Since when has this been going on? Oh, Zhuo Fan, you sure are playing close to the vest. Not even I saw it coming. Report. A guard rushed to his knees. Your Majesty, please evacuate. The rebel army is pushing hard and the city guards are on the brink of collapse. Your Majesty's safety is paramount. Please think of the world's safety and leave the imperial capital. Absurd. I am the ruler of this nation. How can I just leave the imperial capital? The emperor glared. Have you found out where Zhuge Changfeng is right now? Not yet, Your Majesty. The guard lowered his head in shame. The emperor said, Prime Minister Zhuge sure is thorough. With all my divine dragons away from my side, he still fears I'll send someone after him and keeps hidden ever since the start of the rebellion. Haha, what can a coward possibly achieve? Haha, that crusty old man will only show himself when the rebellion is over. Imperial Father. Crown Prince and Fatty rushed into the study. Imperial Father, the city guards are down and even the 6th grade array has failed. Some bastard destroyed the core. The army outside is flooding the capital. Please, Father, evacuate. Crown Prince beseeched. The Fatty nodded, looking outside in panic. Shouts came from outside. The Imperial Guards were clashing with the rebels. The Imperial Guards suffered a crushing defeat at the Second Prince's rebellion just a while back and now were beset by another force before they could recoup. The Fatty looked more distressed by the second. Humph, that crusty old man had quite a few hidden pawns placed inside the city, waiting for the right moment to strike. The Emperor strutted outside. I am the rightful Emperor, blessed by heaven itself. Let's see how Tianyu's best mind, my loyal Prime Minister, kicks me off my chair. Imperial Father, Crown Prince and Fatty shouted. But knew no words would get to the staunch Emperor. All they could do was follow him in silence. The fighting closed in as they exited. With wails and shouts of pain, men in black flooded the area. There was no sight of any Imperial Guard around, most likely drowning in their own blood somewhere. The rebels had the Imperial Palace surrounded in seconds, with discipline and efficiency seen only in veteran armies. Crown Prince and Fatty stood guard on the Emperor's sides as they glared at the enemy. The Emperor nodded in praise. Just how many decades did the old-timer take to raise such an effective army? It's not far behind even the Dugu army. Prime Minister Zhuge has shown great consideration for today. Your Majesty shows no fear even in the face of 1,000,000 soldiers. Truly a man of valor. A man walked out from the ranks of the rebels. Zhuge Changfeng was followed by his young elders and the entire court, smiling like the victor. Crusty Zhuge, you wretched thing, dare rebel? Crown Prince snapped. The Emperor merely waved, child, easy. Zhuge has been Prime Minister for decades, rendering great service to Tianyu. He did it for the people and for the future. He is a valuable official of Tianyu. A lord should not slander one such as he so easily either. Crown Prince choked on anger, forcing himself into a bow. Zhuge Changfeng snorted, Your Majesty, we've been working together for close to a century now. Yet you're still so fake. Now that I have the power, this is your final moment. Can't you be honest for once? Why ask such a question, Prime Minister Zhuge? I've always been pleased with your conduct over the years in dealing with matters of the court. I can say with complete confidence that if not for Prime Minister Zhuge, there'd not be the glorious Tianyu Empire of today. The Emperor laughed. If not for the swords in the background, everyone would think this was just a heart-to-heart talk between a lord and his minister. Zhuge Changfeng mocked, O great and wise ruler, I have committed the heinous sin of rebelling, a righteous lord's shame. Shouldn't I be put to death? How could the treacherous me ever betray the compassionate and brilliant master? What? The officials around had no idea where the Prime Minister was going with this. One official flattered, the Emperor is still blind to see his head is about to roll. No wonder everyone is set to fight him and get Tianyu in chaos. He is not fit to be called Emperor, only the wise Prime Minister Zhuge can be the true eminent ruler here. Don't you all agree? Hark! Everyone echoed. Crown Prince and Fatty were outraged compared to the Emperor's tranquility. Zhuge Changfeng turned to the speaker and said with disdain, Ministry of Appointment Sir Chao, I have said this before, your flattery is too obvious. You're better off not saying anything. And you're wrong about something. His Majesty is no fool but a shrewd man. I should know. I've been fighting him my entire life. If he were to be a fool, won't that make me a moron? The whole court was stumped. What's with the Prime Minister? Why does this look like two old friends catching up? Fellas, could you perhaps be kind enough to mind us, part of the rebel army? This isn't a tea party, you know. At least snap at each other and tirade already. It's hard for us to get into our roles with you all being so cool with each other. Even rebels have their honor. Please don't ignore us. Zhuge Changfeng and the emperor never cared about some extras feelings, since all they could ever possibly do was stick to the side. They couldn't even employ the height of their careers right, i.e., rear smooching. Chapter 464, Reversals. Chapter 464, Reversal. Prime Minister sir, is His Majesty wise? Chao was mortified, put on the spot by Zhuge Changfeng. Words came hard to him. Is that how a rebellion works nowadays, praising the emperor instead of cursing him? Zhuge Changfeng was particularly happy about his response though. Yes, His Majesty is wise, or more precisely, shrewd. The sole reason I had a hard time even eating all these years is all due to His Majesty. When will my endless list of crimes fall on my head? When will he corner me? Come tomorrow I can finally find peace. Oh, then I would have to apologize, Prime Minister. I must have caused you quite the headache, ha. The emperor laughed. Zhuge Changfeng smiled in mockery. Your Majesty, are you stalling for help? Well, let's not. You had yet to show all your hands in the second prince's rebellion, but did you actually think I wouldn't notice the 50,000 imperial guards you've trained in secret? It just so happens that I had our Chuanrong Empire friends look after them. That army should be gone by now. Chuanrong? I should have known you were colluding with them for letting them come to my birthday. Once you were gone, the rebellion started, and they've also gone missing from the garrison. Although, are you sure their 5,000 can deal with my 50,000 strong? The emperor quirked an eyebrow. Zhuge Changfeng grinned. 5,000? That's just the delegation. I am the Prime Minister, tasked with interaction among the empires. It was a year ago when I had Tuoba Tieshan's elite men slip in as merchants. To say nothing of the Minister of Rights being on my side. You and that rough Dugu Zhantian were none the wiser. There are in fact 100,000 Chuanrong in the empire. That was a good subterfuge. The emperor nodded. I seem to find my poor life at an untimely end. Only your Majesty is to blame for it, looking to quell the civil war of the houses. So much so that you left the court empty and opened the door for me. Though I do feel for your Majesty's rush, with your body close to the hereafter. That being said, your Majesty can't have a stalemate left for your heir. Paving a way for him is paramount if your Majesty doesn't want him to be overthrown. Prime Minister Zhuge knows me so well, the emperor nodded. Zhuge Changfeng sighed, but the empty city tactic is a dangerous gamble. I almost believed it. Out of everyone in the world, only your Majesty can have me play your tune. Zhuge Changfeng had some sympathy showing, gone soon after as he faced Crown Prince. His Majesty will abdicate and the world will be in turmoil. It needs leadership to set it right. Are you willing to step up? What? All ministers looked dumbfounded. They all thought it'd be Prime Minister Zhuge going up there. But the old man gave it all up. What's the point of all this then? Crown Prince's eye twitched, his heart booming in his chest. Real or not, Zhuge Changfeng is after shaming the Yuan clan. Only the emperor nodded with a smile. Prime Minister Zhuge is thorough. Even if you win the throne, the people will hardly accept you, while also having Dugu Zhantian to face. It's better to place a pawn you can control. You'll have all the time in the world to take it later. Crown Prince paused. Better to be a puppet than no emperor at all. Zhuge Changfeng patronized. Your Majesty, you wound me. Granted, it makes perfect sense, but I never wanted the throne from the start. All this rebellion is a chance to talk with your Majesty. As for Dugu Zhantian, I simply need to take your Majesty's jade seal and send word to Tuoba Taishan at the border to invade. With Dugu Zhantian stalled, how long will you last, I wonder? The emperor nodded. Excellent move, flawless even. But Prime Minister, you have to consider that the perfect plan is easiest to err. The emperor shouted, begin. Capture the rebels? Princess Yongning was showing her valor storming here, with figures popping behind her and releasing eerie cries. 10 radiant stage experts and 100 shadow guards were rushing Zhuge Changfeng. Capturing Zhuge Changfeng would cut the rebellion short. Zhuge Changfeng only had a cold smile for their attempt. Your Majesty, you've already used this move in dealing with the second prince. He signaled his yin-yang elders. Black and white ripples passed, fusing and unleashing deadly power at the attackers. Boom. The shadow guards and the radiant stage experts were flung back and spat blood. They slammed the ground with ashen faces, weak and despondent. 10 radiant stage experts and 100 shadow guards fell in a single move. Yongning shuddered from fear. They're radiant stage experts. Not divine dragons, but they can still hold their own, yet a look got them routed? Who are these two? Yongning knew they were bad news, just not the full extent. One radiant stage guard got his feet under him and watched the elders appalled. Ethereal stage expert. To a radiant stage expert, soul attacks were hardly effective, not when this was their strong point. This made such attacks obsolete in radiant stage experts' fights. No matter how much tougher divine dragons were than these experts, their souls were not so much. But these two. The eyes of radiant stage experts filled with death, while the rest were overwhelmed. Tianyu has never seen an ethereal stage expert, yet two just appeared next to Prime Minister Zhuge? That's why he's so confident. The ministers were praising again. How Prime Minister Zhuge was awesome, of immense talent to invite such men. Zhuge Changfeng shook his head. Haha, you're wrong. With ethereal stage experts around, I'd have acted ages ago. They're on the cusp at best. But their combined attack does make for an ethereal stage expert's attack. The radiant stage experts sighed still. We can still beat them. Zhuge Changfeng took in their looks and said, Your Majesty, if that's the extent of your abilities, I would have to advise you to give up. As minister and ruler, I do not wish to force this. Haha, Prime Minister, don't be so quick to laugh. My order wasn't for them but for... The emperor's eyes glinted and his face grew smug, pointing at Zhuge Changfeng. Zhuge Changfeng jerked, just as he felt pain in his shoulders from the iron grips. Zhuge Changfeng looked back to see his very own yin-yang elders holding him back. Zhuge Changfeng's eyes went wide. Those ministers were panicking as well, scrambling backward. What just happened? Aren't they on the Prime Minister's side? Just why? Zhuge Changfeng turned from the emperor to his elders. The elders sighed, Forgive us, Prime Minister. We thank you for your care during all these years, but we are His Majesty's divine dragons. We're only following orders. What? Zhuge Changfeng was dumbstruck. Everyone, be it the Crown Prince or Yongning, sported the same dumb look. There's actually 5 divine dragons. 2 of which no one had ever seen. Everyone stood there agape, forgetting that they were enemies and rebels. Zhuge Changfeng finally resigned to reality. Then you are not yin-yang elders. I have looked into the roster of imperial family's experts and there's no one by that name in there. Correct. They go by the name of heaven and earth sages. The emperor stroked his beard. Chapter 465. Great men's favors are uncertain. Chapter 465. Great men's favors are uncertain. Heaven and earth sages? The 2 of the 3 strongest divine dragons 300 years ago? You're not dead? Zhuge Changfeng gasped, I see it now, haha. The 2's eyes met and sorrow traced their faces. With your Majesty's boundless wisdom, you should have taken care of me by now. I can tell you have my 200,000 men surrounded. And there's the 100,000 Xuanrong cavalry on their way, but they must have fallen in your trap. But for that, you need an army, and from what I know, only Dugu Zhantian can do it. But he is out dealing with Regent Estate and Zhuofan. Zhuge Changfeng moved his gaze from the sages to the emperor. Your Majesty, do you have some other great force that I don't know about? The emperor shook his head. Prime Minister Zhuge, we've seen each other for years, and with your ambition, there's nothing you couldn't find out. It's not so easy for me to hide such a move from your piercing eyes. I am in total agreement as well. Zhuge Changfeng smiled, and I am all the more astonished by how you got such a huge force. What did I miss? Crown Prince and Fatty looked at the emperor with rapt attention. His move was just too obscure for even the likes of Zhuge Changfeng to see it coming. To top it off, ever since the second prince's rebellion, the emperor was having a hard time coping with Zhuge Changfeng. Yet not once did he pull out this ace. The ingenious and cunning put into it made him a rare mind on this earth, so much so that it sent a chill down his son's back. The emperor loved watching Zhuge Changfeng squirm. Haha, you want to know that much? But I do believe ignorance is bliss in this case, sparing you the vexation. What could trouble a dying man? I only wish to part with a clear conscience. Zhuge Changfeng spoke. The emperor paused. You are indeed my great minister, helping me all these decades, a pillar of the nation. I admire your calm. The emperor clapped. Men, grab them. Haha, as your Majesty commands. A familiar shout came from the clouds. Zhuge Changfeng shuddered and his face fell. The Xuanrong warriors rode in on their roaring spiritual beasts, surrounding the rebels. The ministers felt faint in front of their might. Wasn't Xuanrong on our side? What's it doing pointing their pets at us? The Tauba siblings and imperial tutor came out of the circle. Everything went without a hitch, per Sir's decree. Young Master Tauba, one goatee old man cried at them. Zhuge Changfeng gasped, having a self-deprecating smile, Minister of Rights, it's no use. They sold us out a long time ago. We are surrounded by their 100,000 and His Majesty's 50,000 guards. It's 300,000 to be exact. The Emperor interjected, Prime Minister Zhuge, you got 100,000 Xuanrong cavalry sneaked in, can't I do the same? Zhuge Changfeng sighed, Young Master Tauba, would you help me understand something? What did His Majesty give you? Prime Minister sir, to be honest, His Majesty promised us the land north of Suli River. Tuoba Lufeng explained. Zhuge Changfeng pondered with a frown, it is a rich area in or a rare site and 1/10 of Tianyu. While I promised you half. Is my word worth nothing? Ha ha, Prime Minister Zhuge, sometimes cooperation isn't based on interests, rather ability. Tuoba Lufeng added, His Majesty knew all about our discussions. You were just dancing to his tune, so how could you succeed? And even if you did, that would still leave dealing with unifying the land before you could give us our rightful claim. Would the Empire's 3 guardian sects even listen to you? It means wasted men and effort over nothing. While with His Majesty who knows all, sees all, the sects had no way to deny his word. Zhuge Changfeng nodded, you've thought long and hard I see. My slight, unfortunately. Humph, a true pity. Although Dugu Zhantian, despite being crude, is loyal to a fault. He'd never agree to it unless over his dead body. Tuoba Lufeng snickered, glancing at the Emperor. His eyes released bloodlust. Everything has its opposite. It would seem Marshal Dugu has gone too long in years and needs proper, final rest. Zhuge Changfeng shuddered, pained with grief, Your Majesty, he is stubborn but he's been loyal to you all these years. How can you? There's no one more loyal than Marshal Dugu, my right and left arms put together. My heart is in pain for going with this strategy, but he wields 70% of the Empire's authority, his army unequaled. A man with virtue sins the moment he stands out, ha. Chuckling, Zhuge Changfeng lamented, all our efforts to make Tianyu prosper all these decades are repaid with a sordid end. I accept my fate, but for that old man. Like they say, great men's favors are uncertain. Zhuge Changfeng struck a lonely figure gazing at the sky. The Emperor waved, take him to the 9 frigid prison. Make sure he's under constant watch. Understood. 2 guards led Zhuge Changfeng away and the Emperor turned his sharp eye to his mutinous seditionists. They shivered to the bone and faltered back. Someone mustered up meager courage to say, Why Your Majesty, it's all Zhuge Changfeng's fault. He twisted words, forcing us on this path. I beg Your Majesty to recall all of our contributions in the court and spare our miserable lives. We implore you, Your Majesty. We will be eternally grateful. Another shivered out a plea. The Emperor mocked, in all of Tianyu, only the Prime Minister and Marshal have truly strived for this nation. While you, pack of filthy mongrels, only look after your own ass. And now ask for mercy? Execute them. Understood. Bowing, the guards stepped forth to drag those great, now weeping and wailing figures of court. As for the rebel army, they were panicking with their leaders gone. Just like a headless chicken. The Emperor spoke, you all are their tools, imposing a lesser blame. I, a believer in the good of man, shall give you a chance. Swear your fealty and I shall make you imperial guards, serving me for all your lives. Everyone fell to their knees at the Emperor's boundless mercy. The Grand Rebellion had collapsed on the spot. The Emperor nodded and Tuoba Lufeng smiled, Congratulations Your Majesty in quelling the rebellion. It is by the grace of my Xuanrong friends that I've succeeded. The Emperor smiled back. Tuoba Lufeng nodded and pushed his sister forward. Lianer, now do you understand why I was so certain at the Beast King Mountain? In all of Tianyu, the one to offer us support is none other than the Lord of the nation, the Emperor. Tauba Lianer was still out of it. Wrapping her head around this whole thing proved to be a tough one. How am I supposed to know the great leader would use us to clean his backyard? Tuoba Lufeng laughed. Imperial Tutor Han Tianma nodded. This matter had a large impact, making only our Emperor, Brother Taizhan, myself and Lufeng privy to it. You can't fault her for being so lost. The others laughed as well. The Emperor turned stern, Young Master Tauba, how is it going on the other end? Your Majesty, learning that he would be facing his old rival Marshal Dugu, father was eager to begin. Tuoba Lufeng spoke with confidence. Commander Tuoba Lufeng of the Chuanrong had faced Dugu Zhantian in 20 battles and 100 skirmishes, yet all ended in draw. Perhaps this time will be different. Chapter 466, Something Stinks. Chapter 466, Something Stinks. The rebellion left as quick as it came. That being said, it failed not from a lack of foresight in the Prime Minister's planning but the Emperor's outstanding acumen paving the way for the entrapment. With the festivities over and done with, the Emperor pulled out the welcome wagon for the Chuanrong as guests of honor. Tuoba Lufeng and company gladly obliged in a show of respect. Glancing at his remaining children, the Emperor sighed. The foreign look in their eyes cut the heart of this old father. Crown Prince Tsonger Yongning. The Emperor began, "Are you perhaps of the opinion that inviting Chuanrong to deal with Zhuge Changfeng is a stain on Tianyu Empire's honor? It's vile and treasonous?" Yongning snapped. "What does a sheltered girl know?" The Emperor was livid. Yongning flicked her head as she stomped away. The Emperor shook his head, turning to his sons. "You two are the future leaders of Tianyu. What is your take?" Imperial Father, the plan is sublime to the point that it eludes me." The Crown Prince bowed. The Emperor flicked his eyes on the fatty, who jolted, "Imperial Father, with the 7 houses poisoning the nation since inception, the sooner they're gone the better. Zhuge Changfeng and Dugu Zhantian had power yet couldn't attain peace. If, for argument's sake, it leaks out that you used our lands to do it, then the Yuan dynasty will have Tianyu's people against it. Tianyu's emperor might even change. And for that reason this information will not leave this place. Anyone found guilty will be hanged." The Emperor's eyes flashed and he sighed, "While I know the consequences of such a move, do you?" The two shook their heads. "We ask Imperial Father to enlighten us. The Lord adheres to the 3 bonds and 5 virtues, preaches benevolence like any other person. But there is one aspect in which a man and a lord differ. A man but strives for peace on earth while a lord can't be shackled by it." Smiley face https://en. Wikipedia. org/wiki/3_fundamental. The Emperor stroked his beard. "Do you know who Tianyu belongs to?" The two bowed. "Yes, Imperial Father." "No, it's the Emperor's." The Emperor shook his head. "Today it is mine, but after I'm 100, it will pass on to the next one. In other words, Yuan clans. But they're all wrong. We have little control over anything. The 7 noble houses make a show of submitting to us, but they rule half the lands. Zhuge Changfeng and Dugu Zhantian control the rest. In that regard, Yuan clan has the weakest power, and is further exacerbated by being an emperor who only keeps the power balance till the end of my days. How is this Yuan clan's rule?" The sons were gripped with fear, their faces solemn. The Emperor followed. "Yuan clans, every generation of emperors strove to return Tianyu to its rulers. And in my time the chance has finally come, a chance I could never forsake, at the offset of using Chuanrong to achieve it for 1/10 of our nation. And it has washed away the 7 houses and those 2 ministers' power, begetting my one true rule. In this regard I am the winner. Crown Prince Tsonger, what's yours can only be yours in your own 2 hands. Anything short is pointless. This empire may go by Tianyu, you may be its emperor, but they're all empty words." "We are grateful for your teachings." The sons bowed. The Emperor nodded. 2 weeks later, in a serene valley, the birds and everything called out the song of nature. The silence was soon interrupted by a rumbling so great that it made all the birds frantic. Once it settled, a black column of men marched through the valley like a big snake. With each step, the earth trembled, with each step, the land moved. A power instilled by a march of 1,000,000 people. In the lead was an old man, strong and valiant, holding a cold blade at his side. "Marshal, there are cliffs on both sides and are covered in trees, the worst position for us. There may be ambushes up ahead. We should send scouts." Dugulin advised. Dugu Zhantian pondered. "No one would dare ambush us in Tianyu. Not even Zhuge Changfeng with his endless wisdom and his few troops. The imperial capital is in turmoil and we don't know how long His Majesty can hold on. We have to charge, ambush or not. Increase speed by 1/3. We must reach the imperial capital within the month." "Understood." Dugulin relayed the orders and the army was soon at the center of the valley. Huge booms rattled the sky and odd flickers of light revealed lightning connecting heaven and earth in its unbridled show of force. Searing flames fell onto the valley like dragons and pinned the army down, taking with them thousands of soldiers howling from the heat. Dugu Zhantian cried, "It's a trap. We're being ambushed." Martial orders. Whoosh. The 4 tigers of Tianyu were before the marshal in a bow. The soldiers remained calm even at the death of thousands of their comrades in arms. This is the valor of Dugu army, unflinching in death, unbreakable in battle. A cold pair of eyes stared at them from among the trees. "Dugu Zhantian, I may win this battle, but it brings me no honor. Nevertheless, I still wish to be the one to cut you down. Prepare for battle. This trick won't scare that old-timer." Understood. The forest exploded with agreement. Looking at the flickering lightning, the scorching fire, Dugu Zhantian roared, "Haha, that old Zhuge has even made a move against me now, on my return? What I lack in subterfuge I make up for on the field of battle." 4 tigers of Tianyu, snake formation. Punch through. Dugu Zhantian snorted. Understood. The tigers took a division each. A soldier was weak alone, but working together the Yuan Qi blended into forming a cohesive unit shielding the squad. No lightning or flame touched them. The tigers roared and the army split up into snakelings in all directions, easily bypassing the heat and thunderbolts. At safety they regrouped with not so much as one loss. Dugu Zhantian wielded his blade looking around, "Don't think you can take me with such a trick. Come out if you dare." Roar. Beast howls shook the skies and quaked the earth, Tithats. Rumble. With a shudder stronger than the army's previous marching, a horde of spiritual beasts came into sight. They were not ordinary spiritual beasts either, but carrying armored warriors. Dugu Zhantian could tell that display from anywhere. Chuanrong's beast army? What are they doing here and so many on top of it? Dugu Lin asked. He wasn't the only one curious. Dugu Zhantian gnashed his teeth. That wretched Zhuge Changfeng sold his country. Letting this army run unchecked, it will slaughter the people and rain havoc on Tianyu. That rotten bastard has cast aside even the people for the world. Does he not care about heaven's wrath? Marshal, something stinks. Not even the Prime Minister would be so brazen as to let Chuanrong into Tianyu in such an open fashion and undetected as well. There hasn't even been a word from the border. Dugu Feng frowned. Dugu Zhantian's suspicions grew, but he had no time to unravel them. The beast army was upon them and not even their numbers would prove to help them here, with no support from arrays. Chapter 467, The 5 Wolf Wardens. Chapter 467, The 5 Wolf Wardens. Tigers, echelon formation. As the beast army closed in, Dugu Zhantian shouted orders. The 4 tigers of Tianyu bowed and split the million soldiers into 4 divisions and charged. The division formed cohesive units sharpened into daggers as they got ready to break the encirclement before the enemy had yet to reach them. The cold eyes in the woods laughed. Dugu Zhantian, you're as good as ever in using your men. Steel Arm Wolf and Ironback Wolf, go block them. Blood Shadow Wolf and Howling Wind Wolf, flank them. Slaughter Wolf, meet them head on. Understood. The trees echoed back. They heard shuffling for a while, leaving only the same cold eyes behind. Roar. Massive beasts were upon the 4 divisions with a stampede, sending gore and blood everywhere while trampling the rest. Close to 1,000 of such huge beasts rained havoc on the men. The divisions fused their Yuan Qi into an impenetrable shield, pushing back the spiritual beasts. This was Dugu army's renowned strength displayed to its true potential. Each soldier stood weak alone, but here they were a cog in this murder machine. Not even a team of Radiant Stage experts would mess with them. It made them so powerful that even Dugu Zhantian, the only Regent Estate expert in the Dugu army, intimidated the likes of Regent Estate. Luo Yunhai postulated that even Gu Santong would find it hard to fight this army. It wasn't as simple as 1 + 1. The added force was more than the sum of its parts. This gave Dugu Zhantian ultimate power in Tianyu, thanks to his 3 million men. Second brother, the Chuanrong doesn't look to have a real commander. We can break free. Dugu Feng shouted. Dugu Lin nodded but frowned. Is that really the case? So many of Chuanrong's beasts have invaded Tianyu, yet without a leader? Forgetting the fact that a Chuanrong soldier never listened to a Tianyu general's orders, there was no way for a Tianyu general to command them simply because they were Chuanrong. Not even the Dugu army, having fought with them for years and years, could claim that they knew about Chuanrong's beast army tactics. But to come here without any leaders? That was outrageous. It was no different than a stampede. Loud bangs announced tens of thousands of 100-meter-tall spiritual beasts in the fourth level, falling down like a meteor shower. They grouped up the moment they landed, with their riders making seals. The spiritual beasts turned into a unified force, wrapping them in a fierce yuan-chi veil, acting as a wall. For crying out loud! Speak of the wolf. Dugu Feng raved, it's Juanrong's formation, Vajra Earth. Stop looking so surprised. We've seen it dozens of times. Brothers, stand aside. Let me punch a hole in that wall of theirs. Dugu Ho roared. Dugu Feng nodded. Third is the best when it comes to head-on attacks. He's best at tackling this headache. Dugu Ho signaled for the men to part. Dugu Ho sped up until he was out. His division's yuan-chi shield grew thicker, even igniting and becoming visible, testament to its raw power. Take them down in one go. Dugu Ho shouted, his soldiers echoing his valor. It was then that a golden figure appeared between the two clashing forces. His yuan-chi melding with the spiritual beast yuan-chi wall. Dugu Ho shouted, Ironback Wolf. In the flesh. Dugu Ho, you'll never get past me. The man laughed. Boom. Red and golden waves clashed in a deadlock, while the two foremost men were Dugu Ho and the sinister Ironback Wolf. Their arms tangled with no one budging an inch. Their own armies fueled their battle with yuan-chi. What looked like a mere brawl between two men had far greater implications. As the formations themselves came into play, it involved the yuan-chi of hundreds of thousands of soldiers. One side had to slip but a fraction and the other's yuan-chi would mow them down like grass. A thin line between glory and oblivion. Dugu Ho, you're still so tough after all these years. Haha, I was right in coming here. Ironback Wolf grew excited. Dugu Ho laughed, my training shall never stop until I take your hide. You and me both? Ironback Wolf echoed his battle spirit. Dugu Feng had other thoughts, coming over with his division. Sorry to spoil your fun, but this is war, not your playground. I don't think any of you would mind me helping the old third. Leader of the four tigers of Qianyu, Wind Walker Dugu Feng. Ironback Wolf spoke, did you actually think you're the only one with an overwatch? Dugu Feng felt uneasy. In a flash of gray, Dugu Feng's advance came to a halt. His own 200,000-strong division had to move aside from the gray yuan-chi sweep. He saw far in the distance a robed man with his own army of 100,000 spiritual beasts. Dugu Feng's voice was heavy, steel arm wolf. Behind the both clashes, Dugu Lin looked on with unease. 3 of the 8 wolf wardens are in the imperial capital, yet 2 have shown up here. Roar. The sudden outburst coming from both sides broke him out of his thoughts. The outburst came from spiritual beasts but not your ordinary ones. Dugu Lin grew frantic as he saw on his left a beast army covered in a red glow and going berserk. Leading them was a man with red hair. Dugu Lin gasped, it's him? Blood Shadow Wolf. Unlike the rest of wolf wardens, he was a rare beast master that could arouse the bestial instinct through a secret blood art, rendering them rabid and 10 times as strong. It was the greatest thorn to Dugu army each time they clashed. With this place in chaos, the ever-calm Dugu Lin felt unnerved at last. And misery sure loved company. Coming on his right was another beast army in a heavy march. Howling Wind Wolf. Dugu Lin's heart hit rock bottom. Howling Wind Wolf was another beast master, specialized in speed. He was as fast as Dugu Feng. Though in this case it was also a matter of size. The huge bodies of spiritual beasts going at such speeds would leave only gore and havoc in its wake. Sweating buckets, Dugu Lin was at an impasse. A yellow glow flashed by Dugu Lin's division. Unshakable mountain. Boom. Howling Wind Wolf's army came to a halt at Dugu Shan and his division's intervention. Dugu Zhantian gave his godson free rein in training his troops, forming the strongest yuan-chi wall in his entire army. What they lacked in speed they made up for in stability. It couldn't punch through a blockade, but given time, it would come out on top in any conflict. The beast army had a hard time even shaking this iron shield. Even so, Dugu Shan's side was pushed back a dozen meters from the impact, with their faces turning yellow. Dugu Shan, you blocked me again? Howling Wind Wolf raved. Dugu Shan snickered, true, it's always me cutting you off. Second brother, I leave Blood Shadow Wolf to you. Dugu Shan focused on the enemy coming for another strike, pushing him back one step at a time. Dugu Lin nodded, turning to Blood Shadow Wolf with a resolved look. Maze formation, silent as a forest. Chapter 468, Tuoba Taizhan. Chapter 468, Tuoba Taizhan. The wedge formation stopped and the 250,000 soldiers shifted into 5 squares, like a plum blossom. The Yuan Qi remained linked in strange arcs and covered the sky in glittering stars. Blood Shadow Wolf looked unsettled at the new formation. But with an army of stampeding crazed beasts behind him, he had to charge. The huge beasts thundered the earth as they trampled at the men. Yet the result was ludicrous. As the spiritual beasts approached, the soldiers skirted to the side, letting them go straight for the heart of the formation. Not for long though, as a loud bang came when the beasts were pushed in and out of a squad from the forces coming from either side, cut off from the rest of their beast army. Blood Shadow Wolf cried foul. A little too late though. Being the leader, he was separated from his main beast army. Without a chieftain, the beasts kept pouring into the formation as it spun and split the beast army into bite-sized chunks. Going with the flow, the beasts followed the spin of the formation. As they revolved around, the spiritual beast's rage cooled down from all the confusion in the end. Blood Shadow Wolf panicked. Dugu Lin's formation was made as a counter for his army in mind. Dugu Lin bore a cold smile, directing his men to shift formation and not let them break out. It was only a matter of time before the spiritual beasts grew weary and collapsed, leaving Blood Shadow Wolf alone. The 4 tigers of Tianyu each found their opponents in different settings, at an advantage, pushed back, or in a stalemate. The eyes among the trees praised, "Dugu army has held out for 10 years for a reason. But you only resisted my beast army because of a race. As rushed as you are to come to aid, you had no time to lay any. Ha ha ha." With a hiss, a white flash covered the battlefield. Dugu Hua's army was flung into the air from a brutal impact, collapsing the formation. The savage enemy's aura mowed down thousands of the fallen soldiers. Dugu Feng rushed to his aid. He switched formations and defended, shields in front. Iron wall formation. Bang. With the shields ahead, the Yuan Qi made a thick barrier. The white flash bounced back, but Dugu Feng's men spat blood from the impact. A man holding a silver spear appeared. He was a youth in white armor leading a team of white-armored soldiers. It was a rarity among the Chuanrong military. Experts in beast handling, their armies needed spiritual beasts to reach their peak power. Chuanrong and spiritual beasts were forever tied together. Him being the exception. Even without the spiritual beasts to help him, he held an undefeated record in the Chuanrong army. Slaughter Wolf, leader of the 8 Wolf Wardens. Dugu Feng started sweating seeing the bloodlust washing over his men. Dugu Hua got back into formation, his little heart thumping inside from that scare. That was close, but he had gone through similar experiences before. Slaughter Wolf's army broke his formation in one strike. The unified Yuan Qi scattered and left them easy pickings. If he'd continued the charge, 100,000 men would fall easily. Dugu Hua was still standing thanks to Dugu Feng's timely help. Dugu Hua gave him a grateful look to which Dugu Feng nodded. But when they turned to Slaughter Wolf, they felt the pressure again. Just how strong is Slaughter Wolf's army to blast away Dugu Hua's? The 4 tigers of Tianyu never took defensive formations except around this enemy, but even that would only delay the inevitable. Dugu Lin glanced over, tense. Without an array, they were on the losing side against the 8 Wolf Wardens. And since this was an ambush, it was even worse. Whoosh! A stalwart figure landed in the center of the battlefield. He stabbed his crescent blade into the ground and said, "Regroup into Dragon Soul formation." Everyone lit up at the arrival of their marshal. The 4 tigers gathered in the center. Dugu Feng and Dugu Hua retreated, while Ironback Wolf, Steel Arm Wolf and Rabid Wolf simply watched. Dugu Shan fell back while Howling Wind Wolf remained in place. Dugu Lin withdrew and Blood Shadow Wolf rejoined his beast army and had them go berserk again. Yet all they did was observe the Dugu army tighten into an odd shape. The 4 tigers of Tianyu made up the 4 sides while Dugu Zhantian made up the center, unaffected by the surrounding enemy. "Young'uns, do you really take us for nothing without a raise? Humph, Dugu army shall never fall. Come, I will personally show you my army's true skill." Dugu Zhantian laughed, his imposing figure sending shivers down the 5 Chuanrong armies. "Don't mind if we do, old marshal." Cupping his hands, Slaughter Wolf and the other 4 nodded. The 5 armies charged. Howling Wind Wolf with his speed, Blood Shadow Wolf with his berserk beasts, Ironback Wolf with his staunch troops and Steel Arm Wolf with his uncanny strength. Yet none of them could match the bloodthirst coming off of Slaughter Wolf's army, sending shivers into the bones of every Tianyu soldier. Before they acted, Dugu Zhantian ordered with a wave of his blade, Dragon Soul formation coiling the world. Roar! A dragon flew out of dragon-slaying crescent blade while the army made a seal, fusing their yuan qi. The entire army's yuan qi turned physical from the quantity. The dragon swam in this sea like a fish in water, absorbing its power. A dragon was unequaled in its waters, growing dozens of meters in a blink, into a 1,000-meter behemoth winding among the soldiers and ensuring their safety. The 5 enemy teams were startled, but their charge was already underway. Bam! With 5 rumblings, the armies were flung back by the dragon, even slaughter wolves. Blood spilled from their mouths, with the spiritual beasts throwing off their riders while collapsing. Dugu Zhantian flicked his blade for the dragon to return. How do you like Dugu army now? The 4 wolves glared at the invincible marshal, unwilling and powerless. Dugu Zhantian shouted, with Chuanrong's 5 wolf wardens here, including Slaughter Wolf, that means Tuoba Taizhan isn't far behind. Isn't it about time you show yourself? Ha, the only reason I'm in Tianyu is to see you, old marshal. A bearded figure stepped out of the tree line. A middle-aged grizzled scholar walking along with his men. The 5 wolves crawled to their feet and bowed. Commander. The commander-in-chief of the Chuanrong, Tuoba Taizhan, had entered the scene. Chapter 469, Lone Goose Gorged. Chapter 469, Lone Goose Gorge. Dugu Zhantian laughed on meeting his old enemy, Tuoba Taizhan. What is the commander-in-chief of the Chuanrong doing so deep in Tianyu? Just what did Zhuge Changfeng give you to get so many of your fine men to face me? It must have cost a pretty penny wasting so many supplies. Haha, you can't get under my skin, Dugu Zhantian. I am here on the orders of my emperor, not to settle any grudges. Tuoba Taizhan said, though I was quite eager to come, I might add. Being rivals for decades, I want to take that head of yours myself. Dugu Zhantian snorted, big words. We've been fighting for decades, always ending in a draw. Yet you want to defeat me today? Why can't I? Tuoba Taizhan raised an eyebrow. All our battles had been waged using everything at our disposal. You had your arrays and formations while I had the beast army. But now there's no array here to help you and my beast army is hardly damaged. Your wings are clipped while I am stronger than ever. You've lost your edge while I've kept mine. The victory today may be without honor, but all's fair in love and war. Your defeat is justly deserved. Dugu Zhantian glared, waved his crescent blade and pointed at his men. My men are strong and in good heart, welcoming death. They're better than your pets even without the arrays. Did you not see how I flung your 5 armies back? Oh really? Grinning, Tuoba Taizhan eyed him. Old Dugu, this trick might work on the 8 wolf wardens, but it won't fool these eyes of mine. Tuoba Taizhan pointed at Dugu army, mocking, any army, no matter how brave, will be weary marching for months now. It's basic knowledge. And to unleash that move of yours, your army is heaving. Dugu Zhantian's brow twitched, but the 4 tigers of Tianyu's hearts jumped. Haha, I may lack in arrays, but I at least know arrays work with spirit stones, using the power of the world to operate. And what did you use instead? By my reckoning, that dragon soul in that blade of yours has no energy of its own. You used your own army's yuan qi to push back my men. Smiley face, the dragon soul here is the weapon's spirit. Snickering, Tuoba Taizhan shouted, it used up most of your men's reserves. You could use the same move a couple of more times and that's it for you and your army. While my beast army will have to charge each time, it will hardly lose its strength. Dugu Zhantian, face it, using that move is a sign that you're on the brink of defeat. You'd have never used it otherwise. The wolf wardens perked up. That's what it is, a trick to hide his exhaustion. Worst case scenario, we'll have a bitter victory. The wolves snickered and got ready to attack. The 4 tigers of Tianyu asked uneasily, Marshal? Dugu Zhantian squinted, remember the Lone Goose Gorge we passed 10 miles back? That choke point is the best place to hold them back. We'll use the dragon soul to break away and rush for the gorge. That's where our odds of victory lie. But Godfather? Dugu Lin spoke anxiously, Marshal, have you forgotten the high priest's scrying? Lone Goose Gorge will be where your life ends. We can't go there. The wind scatters the lone goose's leaves. Once in, the Lord is never more. Dugu Zhantian sighed, this was the high priest's advice. That I strived for the world and violated my Lord's orders, paying with my life. Lone Goose Gorge is my grave. Going in, I'll only come back as dust. But what choice do we have? Am I one to bet the lives of my army on some silly superstition? Haha. Dugu Zhantian regained his mettle. Tigers, dragon soul formation, soaring dragon. The tiger's eyes grew wet. We obey, Marshal. They took up their duty and led their divisions. Tuoba Taizhan frowned. Wolf wardens, flying tiger formation, with Slaughter Wolf in the lead and the others flanking him. Understood. The wolves began their assault. The wind picked up in a violent storm as the wolves turned into a dagger under the might of hundreds of thousands of savage beasts, heading straight for Dugu army. The beasts howled, scaring the forest animals within 100 miles. Dugu Zhantian held his crescent blade as he led in meeting the enemy. The tigers behind him followed close as the Dugu army took the shape of a dragon. The wolves sneered, "It's just a longer snake, a straight line, focused on neither attack nor defense. Marshal Dugu, are you looking down on us? Ignorant whelps, this is no snake formation but a soaring dragon." Dugu Zhantian thrusted his blade at the sky and with a dragon's roar, the dragon soul came out. Instead of sucking in the army's yuan, it fused with theirs. The snake formation changed into a veritable dragon taking to the skies, carrying millions of soldiers with it. Tuoba Taizhan cried out. That's no defensive tactic but a charging one. But with the army on its last leg in defense, going on the offensive will make their yuan chi. Tuoba Taizhan surmised. Bam! The Five Wolves army and Dugu army clashed. The banging and shouting came just as soon as the Five Wolves were blasted aside from the dragon's path. The men were flung aside in a trail of dark blood while the spiritual beasts slammed the ground, with 10,000 of them never getting up and half of them in critical state. The Five Wolves shuddered at the might of Dugu army. "Commander, what do we do?" Slaughter Wolf wiped his bloody mouth as he waited eagerly. He never knew defeat in his life, finding an easy victory boring. Yet meeting Dugu army filled him with excitement, finding value in the victory that followed in beating such a tough opponent. Tuoba Taizhan smiled. "Chase. Let's see how long they'll last." "Commander, that move had us on the ropes. What will chasing do against that?" Howling Wind Wolf asked. Tuoba Taizhan snorted. "Is there a need to flee if it's that strong? His army is spent from using it. His men have no more left to give. It's the best chance to take them down." They all grew excited. After tending to their wounded, Tuoba Taizhan took his wardens after the Dugu army. An hour later the dragon touched down. The dragon soul left behind pale figures gasping for air, with many others breathing their last. The four tigers of Tianyu looked ahead at the losses as they huffed. "The dragon soul formation is too taxing." Dugu Feng sighed. Dugu Zhantian lamented as well. "Tally the losses." Understood. The four tigers soon came back with a report. "Marshal, we lost 300,000 of our brothers. Losing a third before the battle has even started. It is the greatest loss this Dugu army has ever had. I have failed my men." Dugu army sighed. The tigers were morose. Dugu army had only known victory since it came to be. "Marshal, Lone Goose Gorge is up ahead. Tuoba Taizhan will catch up soon. We have to get ready." Dugu Lin proposed. Dugu Zhantian nodded, leading his army. Upon finding the sign saying Lone Goose Gorge at the entrance and the chilly wind coming from it, a sorrow struck his heart. "Is this where I meet my end?" Sighing, Dugu Zhantian entered, followed by his men, swallowed by the thick and endless fog. Chapter 470, Empty City. Chapter 470, Empty City. Boom. The rumbling earth announced a flood of spiritual beasts marching for the gorge. There was not even a stone around the entrance, only a sign saying Lone Goose Gorge. "Stop." The leading general raised his hand. His wolves came to his side. "Commander, what is it?" Tuoba Taizhan scrutinized the thick mist and the gorge. "Old Dugu must be close, on account of his exhausted men. This is the only place within 100 miles to hide his army." Howling Wind Wolf, pick seasoned men and scout the gorge. Tuoba Taizhan ordered. Howling Wind Wolf bowed. "At your command." He gathered a few thousand hardened soldiers into a division, each riding a violent spiritual beast as they marched in. He barely took a few steps past the entrance of the gorge and he heard thunder above him and raging flames exploding into flaming snakes from the ground beneath him. His team was trapped. Howling Wind Wolf cried, "Array! Retreat! Too little too late." A blue glow shot for him, blasting him and his formation everywhere, cutting away the only advantage they had. Howling Wind Wolf spat, "Dugu Feng. He got you?" Dugu Feng charged with his 100,000 troops. Their hardened gazes and the ferocious looks didn't look like any exhausted troops he ever saw. With his spiritual beast formation all over the place, there were hundreds of spiritual beasts breathing their last in a mournful and agonizing cry. It was lucky that these were spiritual beasts and not soldiers, or the damage would have been in the thousands. For God's sake, Dugu army never loses its mettle. Fighting now will only lead to defeat. I better retreat. Howling Wind Wolf gathered the rest of his beasts and used his art to speed away from the gorge. "Dugu Feng, fight me if you dare." "Save your taunts, it won't work." Dugu Feng snickered, watching him go. Howling Wind Wolf relaxed, having obtained an easy retreat. Just what he wanted, using reverse psychology to make Dugu Feng falter from chasing. Or he'd be decimated along with his division with Dugu Feng's style. He thought Dugu Feng believed it to be bait and stayed put, when in fact it was all in Dugu Feng's plan to let him go. "Big brother, did they buy it, Marshall's empty city tactic?" Dugulin asked Dugu Feng. He nodded, "Yes, or they'd be marching their entire million-large army at us with no chance to resist since." Dugu Feng looked at his men. "These are the only ones still standing." Howling Wind Wolf fled with his tail between his legs and routed his troops. Tuoba Taizhan asked, "Howling Wind Wolf, what happened? From what I heard, it seems you were duped." "Commander, Dugu army has set up camp inside as you predicted. But they have arrays in place. Adding the narrow gorge, our beast army can't use their numbers to our advantage. And if we go in too few, we'll lose." Howling Wind Wolf was sullen. Tuoba Taizhan spoke, "Even with arrays, few of their men can even stand." No. They are filled with zest. Dugu Feng's division is at full power, stronger than ever. And with the array he had me suffer a crushing defeat." Howling Wind Wolf sighed. Tuoba Taizhan was skeptical. "Slaughter Wolf, test them out. But at any sign of them holding strong yet, you are to come back at once." "Understood." Slaughter Wolf bowed and led a few thousand of his eager and bloodthirsty men towards the gorge. Just like in Howling Wind Wolf's case, lightning and fire came from everywhere. But he grew excited instead, pushing forward with his heaven-drawn halberd. Not for long though, as the blue light came for him just the same in the form of Dugu Feng's division. Dugu Feng even laughed. 8 Wolf Wardens leader, Slaughter Wolf. Taking him will be cutting Tuoba Tieshan's arm." "Humph, I'd like to see you try." Slaughter Wolf's men gathered their killing intent in their arm, while his halberd whistled through the air in a slash. Bam! The white and blue glows collided, canceling each other out, while Slaughter Wolf's slash sent Dugu Feng's men flying. His eager mockery was cut short as roaring shouts echoed throughout the gorge. The other tigers made their glorious appearance with their own mighty division. Their soldiers were the peak of power, bursting with energy. "Dugu army still has fight left in them?" Slaughter Wolf signaled for retreat. No matter how cocky, he knew his limits. Facing 4 tigers was bad enough, they also had a field advantage with an array in place. A battle now would be most discouraging and costly. Erring on the side of caution, Slaughter Wolf vanished from the mist and out of the gorge. Just missing out on the 3 tigers' divisions fading out into nothing. The brothers reunited and Dugulin asked, "Big brother, how are you holding?" Taking a deep breath, Dugu Feng held his chest and nodded, "I can still take it, just that my chest is heavy. Slaughter Wolf is no joke. We're fortunate for Godfather's foresight, that Tuoba Taizhan will send scouts first. We hastily drew a firestorm array, a lightning array and even an illusion array, or we wouldn't have scared them, ha." Dugulin chuckled, "Big brother, only your men are real. Ours are the bluff. We would have died if Slaughter Wolf didn't buy it." The 4 laughed it out. The clueless Slaughter Wolf bought it hook, line and sinker as he reported, "Commander, they've set up an ambush. Dugu army hasn't lost many men either. From what I saw, 400,000 men at the minimum are still holding strong. With that many standing in formation will make attacking fruitless." Tuoba Taizhan frowned, "Was I wrong? Old Dugu's men haven't grown weary? The old-timer sure knows a thing or two. Surround the gorge, we'll starve them out. Let's see them come out then." Tuoba Taizhan ordered. The men bowed. The 4 tigers noticed their movements and saw no attack coming anytime soon. They went deeper into the gorge to their camp, but left the men behind as guards. Around the command tent, The soldiers were laying down as far as the eye could see. After the dragon's flight, they were more than just spent, needing days to recover. Leaving but a few tens of thousands helping the tigers scare the Chuanrong. Or they'd be marching into the gorge and cull down Dugu army like mowing grass. Although the danger had yet to pass. Marshal, Chuanrong army has us surrounded to cut our supplies short. Orders, Marshal. In the tent, Dugu Feng bowed. Dugu Zhantian was crestfallen, left with no choice but to take it one step at a time. Dugu Lin proposed, should we call for help? Who exactly? The imperial capital is under siege, with His Majesty's situation unknown. Dugu Zhantian sighed, who knew the day would come when I would be trapped in my homeland? Zhuge Changfeng, you've got me good. The four tigers of Tianyu sighed. Dugu Lin spoke again, ask, fifth? The other tigers lit up with hope. Chapter 471, Heavenly Duke. Chapter 471, Heavenly Dew. Yeah, fifth has been through a string of victories and has the 7 houses under him. Luo clan is short on staff, but with the ineffable Zhuo Fan, he'll break our siege. Dugu Feng clapped, shouting. The others nodded. Dugu Zhantian was the only one steamed, silence, call for help comes first and then the rest. But we can call on anyone but fifth. Why? Dugu Feng crumbled. Dugu Zhantian sighed, ever since Zhuo Fan got the dragon soul and entered His Majesty's sight, fifth has been behind him all the way and our bond has been cut. Each to his own fate. Moreover, we were just about to destroy the Luo clan. And now that we're on the ropes, we're supposed to ask them for help? Have we no dignity? But Marshal, fifth won't care. He will always stick to his marshal. Dugu Feng grumbled. Dugu Zhantian softened but steeled himself back, barking, listen up and listen good. Don't you send fifth any jade or I'll use martial law on you. Marshal. They all shouted. Dugu Zhantian wouldn't have it. He might do it out of respect for our past, but it was I who broke it off. I am not Dugu Zhantian if I stoop to such a low act as using him to save me from this entrapment. You dare notify him and you'll be shaming my righteous name, throwing all I've lived for into the mud. I will have no face to live. The four tigers of Tianyu's hearts sank, shaking their heads. For him to say that, they knew there was no talking to him. Dugu Zhantian watched their bent backs as they left, filled with sorrow. Big brother, second brother, how are we going to get out alive without fifth's help? The four went to a corner where Dugu Ho whispered. Dugu Lin's eyes sharpened. I'm sending the jade. Didn't you hear what Godfather said? His integrity is at stake here. Fifth might come, he might save us, but Godfather, Dugu Feng worried. Dugu Lin said, brothers, don't you find all of this strange? Strange? The others asked. His Majesty sent us after Regent Estate and Luo clan and our travel there had been quiet, but then came his edict to return on the eve of battle. Isn't it obvious that if the imperial capital is under siege then His Majesty would call for help? Dugu Feng asked. That's not the issue, but we all know His Majesty. Would the mind who incited the war between Luo clan and Regent Estate have no fallback? For argument's sake, let's say he doesn't, but anyone knows closer help is faster. Why the rash edict, making both sides unable to achieve anything? Dugu Lin analyzed at the nods of the others. Not to mention, our ambush and current situation shows signs of someone's design. Dugu Lin sighed, Dugu army is a seasoned and efficient war machine. We're in this mess trapped because His Majesty called us back in haste. Does that mean the edict is fake? Zhuge Changfeng led us to a trap. Dugu Feng started, which means the imperial capital fell and His Majesty's seal is in Zhuge Changfeng's hands. Breathing out, Dugu Lin shook his head, I am not clear on this. But someone is. Who? Luo clan steward Zhuo Fan? Dugu Lin was firm, have you forgotten, Zhuo Fan found out about us but still went about his business like usual. We took it for his usual cocky self, but in hindsight, it points out what a know-all he is. That our fight was never meant to happen. What? Dugu Feng cried, you mean Zhuo Fan is in on Zhuge Changfeng selling his country? Won't calling out to fifth end up being pointless then? But for Zhuo Fan to end up controlling everything. The others turned heavy. Dugu Lin shook his head, perhaps not, when fifth was with us. Not just once did he praise his steward's desire to set Luo clan at the top of the food chain. Harsh, but he never demeaned his masters. He even respects them to the end. No, I believe Luo clan had no part in Dugu army's ambush. Even if they had something to do with it, with fifth around, we'd have a way out and then get to ask Zhuofan for an explanation. They all nodded, seeing wisdom in it. But Godfather, Dugu Hua hesitated. Dugu Lin smiled. Godfather's integrity is important, but I, crouching forest tiger Dugu Lin, is scared of death and shall plead fifth for help. I will bear full responsibility. How can you shoulder it alone? I'm a scaredy cat myself. Dugu Feng chuckled. Dugu Shan and Dugu Hua shrugged. We four brothers live and die together in the pursuit of our ambition. Since you want to live, so do we. The four burst out laughing. Dugu Lin, in the four's name, sent a jade out of the gorge. The flash of green vanished among the clouds, carrying the hopes of all the Dugu army. Unaware to them, Dugu Zhantian had been onto them from the start, standing a ways away. Dugu Zhantian sighed, foolish children, you have a long way ahead of you. It's best if I take this vilification on myself. He then vanished among the mist. In a hidden room in Windgaze City, Li Jingtian laid on a bed, frail and weakened. Zhuofan and Yen Song were watching over him. Yen Song shook his head after a summary checkup. Elder Li is truly herd-headed. He staked his meridians on showing off his tough side. But was it worth dying for? Haha, you don't get a martial fanatic's mind. Zhuofan chuckled. Haven't you been gushing blood in the 100-pill meeting over our bet just to beat me? You're no less stubborn than he is. Yen Song nodded. Steward Zhua has a point. Different strokes for different folks. Elder Li is a martial fanatic and I'm a pill fanatic. Both willing to stake our all for self-interest. We're on the same path. I just love you guys' character. Dedicated and worthy to groom. Zhuofan snickered, showing his admiration. Back then I escaped a disaster and now I'm a 9th grade alchemist, thanks to Steward Zhua's care. But Elder Li has broken meridians, a cripple. How will his future be? He might even commit suicide when he hears that he can't train. Yen Song sighed. The only way to recover is through Bodhi root, but that thing has been refined. Just what? Oh no. Zhuofan chuckled. Bodhi root is worldly essence, offering endless vitality, but even that can't mend meridians. Bodhi root would only recover Elder Li's body, leaving him with crippled meridians. He is stuck in this place forever at the peak radiant stage. It will be a crushing blow for this martial fanatic. It'd be good enough if he could at least recover. Yen Song shook his head. Elder Yen, if it's about giving his strength back, I'll just make him a war puppet, with bones as tough as steel and uncanny might. Since I'll help him, I won't stop at just saving him, but will make sure to take him to new heights. Yen Song smiled. Steward Zhua has a way. Of course. Raising an eyebrow, Zhuofan said, or I'd have stepped in and stopped his fight. As I had the means to save him, I let him go all out. Zhuofan's hand held a vial. Here is the 12th grade ingredient 100 leaves heaven flowers nectar and the 10th grade ingredient heavenly dew. An ingredient to make a 10th grade pill, heaven reaching pill. It mends bones, it mends veins. Even meridians will be as good as new from total destruction. And all will be much stronger in the process. The best pill for any cultivator. 10th grade? Yen Song gulped, a fire like never before burning in his eyes. Chapter 472, Where Your Heart Is. Chapter 472, Where Your Heart Is. It was plain to see what he wanted. Zhuofan smiled, handing over the vial. Elder Yen, are you curious to try your hand, challenge yourself by making a 10th grade pill? Steward Zhua, you're letting me do it? Licking his lips, Yen Song was worried. What if I fail? It will be a waste of such a rare gem. There's plenty more where that came from. Zhuofan laughed with a casual wave. He gave him a paper. Here's the formula. Achieve success and you will not only save Elder Li, but bring Luo clan to a whole new level. Yen Song had a silly smile, taking the items. With a tyrant like Steward Zhua at my back, it is everything an alchemist ever dreamed of. I will give my all in refining it. I won't let you down. Yen Song hardened his will. Zhuofan plotted for the last battle while filling his free time with a casual refining of war puppets over the next 7 days. Zhuofan wanted to check on Yen Song's progress when the alchemist came over laughing. Steward Zhua, I did it. Zhuofan was taken aback. It hasn't been long since Yen Song became a 9th grade alchemist, yet made a 10th grade pill so easily? He figured giving the first vial of heavenly dew was to help his progress, yet the result. Zhuofan held more praise for the old man. Vicious pill king in name and skill. A shame he met the demonic emperor so late, or he'd be way above a 9th-grade alchemist. Yen Song cackled in glee and showed a vial. Steward Zhua, what do you think of my 10th-grade pill? Though I had to use the whole do to make it. That's not bad at all. Zhua Fan smiled and opened it. As the thick pill fragrance hit him, his blood sped up. Top 10th grade and on the old coot's first time too. Astonishing. Zhua Fan gulped the pill and sat cross-legged. 6 hours whistled by and Zhua Fan's aura exploded into the 5th layer of profound heaven stage. Then 6th. Zhua Fan felt his newfound power surging through his newly widened meridians. Ha, Elder Yen, that's a fine heaven-reaching pill you've made there. You're a true genius of alchemy. Yen Song flushed, giggling. Here, do your best in refining and saving Elder Li. Zhua Fan gave him 10 more vials of heavenly dew. Yen Song was overjoyed. Haha, with a money bag like Sir behind us, it's our greatest blessing. Elder Yen, not to brag, but I have top ingredients to spare. I have no qualms squandering on such a dedicated alchemist. Yen Song gave a firm nod as he shook. Testing himself and his limits in alchemy every step of the way was an alchemist's wet dream. But reality always came crashing down like a ton of bricks. Ignoring one's skill and cultivation, turning a top ingredient into an equally top pill was easier said than done. Searching for that rare ingredient for decades only to fail in refining it would make all that blood and sweat go to waste. While Zhua Fan, throwing away ingredients these alchemists had never even heard of, was acting in the full capacity of the best or worst spendthrift that ever lived or would live. An infinitesimal amount Zhua Fan got from vaulting Kunping's treasury, true, but even this might have made these poor schmucks rich beyond their wildest dreams. To the point that no one, be it sect or nation, could hold a candle to Zhua Fan's inherited legacy. Yen Song, drinking from the tap, was moved to tears. Affirmed once more of how right he was in throwing his lot to Zhua Fan's way. He's a friggin' reliable wastrel of a master. With Zhua Fan's grand style and throwing his wealth around, all alchemists would be flocking in droves, hugging his legs until he budged. He was the idol of everyone. Rich boy, let's be friends. Big brother Zhua, godfather, is in danger. Zhua Fan turned to see Luo Yunhai running over. Yen Song bowed, young master. Zhua Fan saw it coming. Dugu Zhantian is loyal to a fault and inflexible. This day was bound to come sooner or later. Big brother Zhua, why you knew? Luo Yunhai was speechless. Zhua Fan nodded with a sagely look. Why else did you think I fought Regent Estate when I did? Even as Dugu army had us surrounded, I ignored it. You take me for that much of a stuck-up? Haha, it's because I knew there was someone out there wanting Dugu Zhantian's death more than us. Chuanrong? The jade shook in Luo Yunhai's hand. Zhua Fan glanced over. I see, the old coot has the Chuanrong surrounding him to cry for help. That makes perfect sense. Big brother Zhua, we must help Godfather. The Chuanrong will have him starve to death. We must move now. Zhua Fan had only a twisted smile to his urgency. Must? And why should I? They were after us just a little while ago, yet now we're supposed to save them? Luo Yunhai choked. Yen Song laughed. Young master, it was Dugu Zhantian who broke his ties with you to become enemies. Now that he's in peril, asking the national traitors he was out to root out is the cruelest irony of all. Haha. Luo Yunhai bit his lip, sighing. No matter what he does to me, he's still my godfather. He only came for me due to imperial edict. Godfather is loyal to the core and will never go against his lord's will. I am of firm belief that he was torn, having to set his soldiers on us. So? Zhua Fan blurted, I'd respect him more if he went on a crusade against us. Being in inner turmoil yet still going to war makes him a loser god. What a funny title. Anyone would fail when going into war half-assed. His fate was sealed the minute he pledged loyalty to that lord of his. There's no bigger loser out there. He who knows nothing about right or wrong, does not follow his heart, and yet preaches undying loyalty to his king is the biggest fool and deserves nothing but death. Steward Zhua makes sense. Yen Song clapped. Young master, the old man broke all ties with you and was about to kill his godson because of some edict. Why would you ever want to help such a failure of a godfather? Luo Yunhai turned bitter, pleading still. Big brother Zhua, do you remember our difficulty? You could have left and roamed the world alone but still stayed to look after us and Captain Pang in fighting enemy after enemy to save our lives. What? Can't let go. Zhua Fan frowned and blurted. Why? Luo Yunhai pursued. Zhua Fan said, my heart wasn't at peace. I am the same. Luo Yunhai pointed at his heart. I don't want to live with the regret of not helping Godfather. Big brother Zhua acted from his heart, and now I act out of mine and not for our past relationship. I hope you will help me. Zhua Fan squinted. Luo Yunhai stared back, his gaze unfaltering. Zhua Fan said, Elder Yen, call young Sanzi. We three will go to Lone Goose Gorge. Luo Yunhai brightened. Yen Song started, Steward Zhua, you're really going to save him? What if he fights us because of the Emperor again? Inconsequential. I am not saving the old bag of bones but listening to my clan head's order. As his steward, I must do everything to help him. Zhua Fan was filled with zest. Luo Yunhai was touched while Yen Song's face fell as he went to fetch Gu Santong. Chapter 473, Sneak Attack. Chapter 473, Sneak Attack. A black smoke crossed the blue horizon. It gasped seeing the Chuanrong surrounding Lone Goose Gorge, siding with caution. Slaughter Wolf turned his sharp gaze to the sky and jumped with his halberd in hand. As an 8th-layer Radiant Stage expert, he was among the best in the Chuanrong, meeting the eerie smoke without fear. The halberd cut through the clouds like a snake. The humming it released gave off the illusion that it thirsted to pierce the sky in its assault on the black energy. But from that smoke came a black chain, bringing with it the full might of the world as it smashed down. Bam! Ear-piercing clang resounded from the stalemate. Slaughter Wolf felt a strong power numbing his hand. The iron chain shook and sent him back. He slammed into the ground and had to falter 20 steps before coming to a complete stop. Looking up, the smoke had already entered the valley. Slaughter Wolf, what was that just now? Tuoba Taizhan came with his other wolves to see that flicker of black. Slaughter Wolf wiped his brow. Commander, I do not know what that thing is, but it is a terrible expert. From a single clash I know I can't match it. What? Tuoba Taizhan turned pensive, inconsequential. He may be some worldly expert but no one can take my whole army on. He alone can't save old Dugu. Tighten the siege on Lone Goose Gorge. No one gets out. Understood. The soldiers bowed. Meanwhile, the shadow was surrounded by the 4 tigers of Tianyu and their divisions. With close to a month of respite, the Dugu army was back in action. But losses still came, as 100,000 soldiers died from exhaustion, leaving around 600,000 still standing. This force had the gorge to back them and was confident in pushing back the Chuanrong. Dugu Zhantian's empty city tactic had won the break they most desperately needed. Show yourself. Dugu Feng shouted. SSS. The black smoke drifted off to reveal a man in black robe bearing a hoarse voice. Easy, it's only me. His Majesty heard that Dugu army is pinned in Lone Goose Gorge and sent me to help. Where is Marshal Dugu? The man revealed a golden badge. Captain of the Shadow Guards, Shadow King? Dugu Feng frowned and signaled the troops to back off. Shadow King's coming ought to have been good news, that their rescue was nigh. But it only worked to arouse more suspicion at this critical time. By Dugu Lin's analysis, the imperial capital had to be in the Prime Minister's hand. That he sent the Dugu army a fake edict. Yet His Majesty's trusted man, Shadow King, had come with the Emperor's order. It clashed with their earlier assessment. Shadow King noticed the discrepancy from how the 4 tigers stood there. Did you not hear me? I have with me His Majesty's secret edict, and have come to lift the siege off of you. Now where's Dugu Zhantian? Godfather is in the command tent. Follow us. Dugu Lin relented on his suspicions so as not to offend an important official of the Emperor. He bowed as he walked with his brothers. Shadow King followed close with a cold glint in his eyes. At the tent, Dugu Lin reported Shadow King's arrival and Dugu Zhantian welcomed him, overjoyed. Sir Shadow King, welcome, welcome. Even as fellow pillars we've never gotten a chance to meet. Today I am honored. Dugu Zhantian cupped his hands. Shadow King smiled. Old Marshal is kind. I've heard so much about your valor for so long. I can say that I've also fulfilled my wish of meeting you at last. The two exchanged pleasantries and lively small talk. Dugu Zhantian soon reached to the problem at hand with a frown. Sir Shadow King, under His Majesty's order, I am required to rush to his aid. Can I ask how the situation is in the imperial capital? Haha, Marshal Dugu is a die-hard, a role model for everyone. Trapped as you are, the first thing you ask is His Majesty's safety. Shadow King nodded. Old Marshal can rest easy knowing the rebellion is over. I captured that rat, Zhuge Changfeng, with my shadow guards. The assault on the imperial capital has been lifted. That is why His Majesty sent me to Marshall's aid. Dugu Zhantian smiled relieved. Wonderful. Long live the Emperor. Long live Tianyu. Sir Shadow King, Chuanrong's million-strong army has crossed the border and has my army pinned down. What is His Majesty's solution? Dugu Zhantian added. He cares more about his army than the imperial capital. Shadow King grinned. His Majesty has everything in place. As this is a secret operation, I can only inform the Marshal. No one else is supposed to find out in order to avoid leaks. The four tigers jerked. What kind of edict is this that even we can't hear it? Dugu Zhantian dismissed them. We obey His Majesty's order. Wait outside. I'll signal you when to come in. Yes, Marshal. The four bowed and left. Shadow King's grin turned into a smirk. Old Marshal, lend me your ears. I shall present you with the edict now. Dugu Zhantian leaned over. Shadow King's face turned malevolent and slammed Dugu Zhantian's chest with his ghastly claw. Bam. Among the loud sounds, there were even snapping sounds from bones breaking. Dugu Zhantian spurted blood and could barely stand straight. He glared. Why, you're with that rat Zhuge Changfeng as well? Haha, Dugu Zhantian, you're good at war, so why be so confused with politics? Shadow King snickered. For the record, it's not Zhuge Changfeng who is after your life. He sits quite uncomfortably in the prison, never to see the light of day again. The one who's after you and your army is His Majesty. Dugu Zhantian was floored. It can't be. I've been nothing but loyal. How can His Majesty? Just as His Majesty said, there's no one more devoted to his country and lord than Marshal Dugu Zhantian. It tore His Majesty up doing this, but peace in Tianyu demands sacrifice, your sacrifice. Shadow King mocked. Oh, His Majesty did ask me to tell you this. You've toiled all your life for the good of Tianyu and it is now time for you to take rest. Dugu Zhantian never once thought to believe these words. He spoke with blood gushing. No, never, His Majesty would never do this to me. Marshal. His tigers rushed in and roared at the sight. Shadow King, you've hurt our Marshal and now you're going to pay. Dugu Feng exploded with Yuan Qi. Shadow King patronized. 4 pre-radiant stage cubs? Without the army behind you, you're nothing. But since you're so eager to die, I can only oblige, while sparing His Majesty a future headache. Shadow King shot his black chain towards them. The tigers entered a formation, blending their Yuan Qi and multiplying their power. A darn shame there was no army behind them to complete it. Bam. The four trailed blood on their way to the ground, spent. Shadow King snickered. Not bad at all. Your formation managed to repel that. All the more reason your lives must end. Whoosh. Another chain went for Dugu Feng's chest. The other 3 struggled but couldn't even move. Dugu Zhantian struggled to his feet, only to collapse again. Watching his dear godson about to leave this world filled this great marshal with unspeakable hatred and rancor mixed with regret. How convenient that 3 men popped up in front of Dugu Feng in the nick of time to block the insidious black chain. Chapter 474, Expendable. Chapter 474, Expendable. That was the sound made by a tiny hand casually grasping the black chain. Shadow King's heart almost burst out of his chest with fright. Zhuofan Gu Santong, what are you doing here? Not to forget Luo Yunhai, the weakest. But compared to Shadow King, everyone was weaker with the exception being Zhuofan and Gu Santong. Marshal brothers. Luo Yunhai gnashed his teeth at the cruel sight, his nails digging into his palms. Gu Santong took a look and got the gist of it. He said, Dad, we're late. No, perfect timing actually. Zhuofan smiled inside while nodding in sympathy for the rest. Shadow King, you and Dugu Zhantian are the most loyal people I know. Why stoop so low? Zhuofan criticized Shadow King, while also including the hurt Dugu Zhantian into his scolding in passing. Shadow King smiled. Since you know about me, then you must also know that being on someone's payroll means doing the work for them. I'm only following orders. But since you two are here, I shall take my untimely leave. Shadow King flew away in a cloud of smoke. Luo Yunhai cried, Big brother Zhuo, stop him. Easy. Zhuofan snorted. He stuck out his 2 fingers as they released astonishing spatial energy right towards Shadow King. Profound ranked martial art, finger of death. Roar. The dragon roar shook the gorge. Having yet to tame his newfound 9 dragon souls, Fan still had the azure flame to cower them into short-term submission and do his bidding. Like boosting the finger of death for instance, a soul martial art to unseen levels. Shadow King felt the threat to his life before he was even hit. He flipped around and wrapped himself in the black robe for cover. Bam! Finger of Death's soul power struck the robe and slammed it into the ground. Fan checked it over only to find it empty. Shadow King was gone. For God's sake, he still ran away? Fan sighed, so he knows red herring too. And here I was thinking he'd used the robe to defend when in fact it was a cover to flee from our sight. Can a spirit puppet turn invisible? Gu Santong asked. Fan nodded. Of course, how else do you think the shadow guards kept tabs on every power in the imperial capital? Though they can cheat our eyes, the same doesn't apply to their scent, albeit thinner, thanks to the art. But an expert will point them out any time. Since Shadow King got us distracted, he used this chance to get away. Gu Santong snickered. Next time I'll just use my nose to flush him out. Let's see him run then. Marshal. A cry of sorrow came from the tent, getting the two's attention. They found Luo Yunhai hugging Dugu Zhantian and crying his eyes out. The four tigers crawled their wounded bodies over as crestfallen as Luo Yunhai. Luo Yunhai turned with hope. Big brother Zhua, please check Marshal's state. I gave him a pill but it didn't do anything. Let me. Zhua Fan poured Yuan Qi into his body and shook his head. 7th grade demonic treasure, soul-rotting needle. There's no hope at all. 7th G grade? Luo Yunhai was startled. Zhua Fan said, soul-rotting needle is a demonic treasure targeting souls. It fuses with the target's soul and eats it away to the point that nothing can separate it. Shadow King must have used it in that attack. Not even demonic cultivators would use such a ruthless move, except for bitter enemies and arch-nemesis. This demonic treasure is hard to come by, but it only shows how desperate the Emperor is in getting rid of Marshal. Everyone shuddered, overwhelmed with grief watching Dugu Zhantian's ashen face. Dugu Zhantian only felt loss and not sorrow. I have fought all my life with no regard to my own fate only to find my end with such a sordid passing. Dugu Zhantian turned to Zhua Fan. Even though unwilling to give my life, I shall obey my lord's order. I only wish that you would clear some things for me. Zhua Fan nodded. Please ask, old Marshal. I am versed in the art of war, but never had been complacent, always loyal to my lord and nation. What could I have done to garner His Majesty's suspicion to give me this fate? Dugu Zhantian's eyes were filled with bitterness. Blood flowed from his mouth. As he turned a deaf ear to politics, he frowned in ignorance at the matters leading to this moment. Zhua Fan replied with a question. Marshal, could you tell me what your biggest achievement is? Defending the border from Chuanrong's invasion. Dugu Zhantian stressed every word in pride. Zhua Fan continued, then old Marshal, had the Chuanrong taken even one step forward before you came to command? Shuddering, Dugu Zhantian turned pensive. Dugu Feng spoke with valor. Before Marshal came, Chuanrong pillaged unchecked, slaughtering our people. But once Marshal was charged with the border, they never stepped foot in Tianyu again. So? Zhua Fan cut him off. These lands are the Emperor's lands. Chuanrong's pillaging had nothing to do with him. In fact, the Empire's 3 guardian sects act as deterrents in keeping the Chuanrong from taking Tianyu's lands. As long as no acre was lost, everything was his. And since the Chuanrong were miles away, it was no service to His Majesty. Zhua Fan, how can you say that? It is a great service to the people, to the nation. Old man, quiet. Let him speak. Dugu Feng argued and made Dugu Zhantian look heavy. Zhua Fan smiled. Old Marshal's greatest merit in his life, even bigger than Zhuge Changfeng, was to make the 7 noble houses cower in fear. Dugu Zhantian shuddered, coming to his own conclusions. As an army man, glory and honor came from fighting outsiders. There were insignificant people to deal with rats pilfering the country. For this to be his greatest achievement would mean his biggest disgrace. Zhua Fan resumed, I made some inquiries into the past centuries by talking to the house lords only to find out that from the moment young Sanzi appeared, the imperial family's power waned, giving way to the rise of the 4 pillars. The previous pillars couldn't deal with the situation, and with Yun Xuanji's guidance, His Majesty had Yu and Zhuge Changfeng take office and command, leading to the 4 pillars of today. What I'm saying is, the 4 pillars came to be only to keep the houses in check. His Majesty gave you command of the army and had you fight the Chuanrong, but not with the intent of protecting the borders. Instead, the purpose was to harden the men for the right time to face the 7 houses. To teach the 7 houses a lesson, he needed you two to stand in opposition and balance the scale. That implied coexistence as well. Once one of you was out, the other would outlive his usefulness. In other words, you're of no value any longer, expendable, replaceable. For His Majesty to draw in his net and wield all the power of these lands after dealing with Zhuge Changfeng, he has to take one last person out of the picture, you. Everyone stood dumbstruck at the revelation. Dugu Zhantian's heart was bleeding from pain. My very existence was a sham, a chess piece to balance the powers. What then is the Chuanrong army doing here? His Majesty can't be so foolish as to let them in. Dugu Zhantian exclaimed. Zhuo Fan sighed. Old Marshal Dugu, you're so naive, blind to the cruel and horrifying capacity of human greed, especially a monarch's. I dare say the Emperor is willing to let these lands go to waste rather than not having them under Yuan clan's rule. Let them in? Aha, these wolves are helping him devour his enemies in his way to rule the world. At most he'll just have to throw these wolves a bone. His explanation was in perfect tune with the Emperor's grand design. Only Dugu Zhantian now lay in Luo Yunhai's arms, with closed and heavy eyes. What have I been risking my life the last decades for? Chapter 475, Marshaled. Chapter 475, Marshal. Marshal. Everyone cried in worry at Dugu Zhantian's pained look. Dugu Zhantian had trekked these lands for decades, only to find himself another's toy all along. It would make any man enraged, to say nothing of their Grand Marshal. Waving feebly, Dugu Zhantian's eyes had lost their usual vigor. As his soul was chipped away, his greatest pride crumbled before his very eyes. Dugu Zhantian spoke in a hoarse and weakened voice. Zhuo Fan, I had said it before the esoteric debate, that you resemble me just as loyal. You are striving for the Luo clan and I for the dynasty. If I am loyal to a fault, what then are you fighting for? Zhuo Fan pointed to his heart. This is what moves me, what drives me. Staring at his heart, Dugu Zhantian's face enlightened. I see love. I was talking about inner demons here. Zhuo Fan nodded even as his heart skipped a beat. A peculiar feeling wormed itself into his being. Dugu Zhantian stirred a deep corner of his heart and shook his mind to the core in the process. Bring me the dragon-slaying crescent blade. Dugu Zhantian raised his weary hand. The tigers finally recovered with Luo Yunhai's pills and could move again. Dugu Feng obeyed by presenting his cherished weapon on one knee. Dugu Zhantian grasped it with a trembling hand, but his eyes shone as he laughed. I asked Tianyu's best tool refiner to make it the first time I went to the borders. I once absorbed the dragon soul of Chuanrong's lands, and on that day, it became my greatest pride. It had been my cherished companion for many years, and now I bid it farewell. Tracing its blade, Dugu Zhantian was filled with love. He flicked the weapon and pushed it forward. Zhuo Fan, unlike me, you know what must be done. Take it and protect the Luo clan. The 4 tigers gasped, as did Luo Yunhai. Though they could muster no complaints as they gazed into Dugu Zhantian's steel look. Zhuo Fan looked at the weapon and shook his head. A man of honor does not take another's prized possession. Although I am anything but, I know how much Marshal cares for it, and so I must refuse. What can a dead man do with treasures? Zhuo Fan, take it or I'll have a bitter death. Dugu Zhantian lifted the weapon and spoke with a resounding tone. Zhuo Fan resigned and nodded. Asked by Marshal with so much fervor, refusing will be downright immoral. But the old coot's respect isn't the issue here, it's how to use the tigers later. Refusing meant earning the 4 tigers' ire. Zhuo Fan shouldered the blade and struck the image of a mighty general. Dugu Zhantian smiled as all power left him, slumping in Luo Yunhai's arms. Marshal. Everyone cried tears of sorrow. Dugu Zhantian looked at all his sons with ardent love. No, not Marshal, I wish to hear, Godfather. Godfather? The 5 shouted. Dugu Zhantian's mouth slumped as he let out one last hoarse grunt. Godfather. The 5's tears flowed without stopping as they called out, never to wake up the scattered soul of the old man. His face was not the face of agony, but that of peace and tranquility. The commanding tent resounded with the sobbing of Dugu Zhantian's 5 godsons, filling the whole Lone Goose Gorge. The soldiers sensed the deep sorrow it carried. Gu Santong felt it too, his eyes getting red, his nose stuffy. He clutched at Zhuo Fan as he sobbed in his arms. Zhuo Fan watched it all with a silent lament. Dugu Zhantian, a god of war, gave his life for his country and died at its whims. What a poor man worthy of all respect. A true misfortune that the world changed as it did and made him to be discarded. The mourning went on for 4 hours and the 5 carried Dugu Zhantian's body before the gathered army. The military order said not to leave one's post, but the chaos here left them uneasy. They came to find the old marshal pale and carried out. Their eyes grew heavy and moist but no tears fell. A man didn't cry over nothing while a soldier wouldn't, even if bleeding. It was one of the marshal's teachings. Dugu Feng watched these soldiers bear the pain and spoke hoarsely, "Soldiers of the Dugu army, something devastating happened today. The emperor betrayed us and our dear marshal fell at Shadow Captain's sneak attack at the emperor's orders." Marshal. The army fell to one knee roaring their anguish, but nothing could stem the bursting rage. But how the Dugu army has always been candid, this matter can only be left to the new marshal. Dugu Feng shouted. New? Zhuo Fan was perplexed. Dugu Zhantian just died and there's already a new marshal? Dugu Zhantian must have settled this since long ago. That's why the 4 tigers of Tianyu came to be. That's for the best, for the godsons to take revenge for their father. Zhuo Fan figured it out in his infinite wisdom. The Dugu army looked around before finally settling on Zhuo Fan. More like the blade he carried. Dugu Feng and his brothers looked behind and shouted, "Our second matter is to greet our new marshal, Zhuo Fan." Greetings, Marshal Zhuo. The godsons were the first to bow, followed by the soldiers. Zhuo Fan froze with a goony look. Did I miss something here? How did I become the new marshal? Though the sight of everyone bowing, even Luo Yunhai, woke him up to reality. Why though? Luo Yunhai smiled. Marshal, Godfather had a rule. Whoever he gives the dragon-slaying crescent blade, shall be the new marshal of Dugu army. Everyone here knows this. He entrusted it to you on his deathbed and that makes you our marshal. The million-strong Dugu army shall henceforth obey Marshal's orders. We await Marshal's commands. The army's roar shook the heavens. Zhuo Fan was dazed, then his heart bloomed with joy. He was looking for an excuse to get Dugu army on his side, but here it was, under his complete control. There was no freer lunch out there. Zhuo Fan lifted his weapon and roared, "His Majesty is misinformed and killed his loyal official as a consequence. I, Zhuo Fan, take the seat of Marshal of the Dugu army, to drive out the savage Chuanrong and exact heaven's will. We shall march north and cleanse our Lord's court, bringing light to Tianyu. Charge out of Lone Goose Gorge. March for Wingay City to prepare. We will split in 4 directions and get revenge for the old marshal. Revenge. Revenge. Revenge." The soldiers brandished their weapons with an unquenching thirst for revenge. Shadow King had just escaped the gorge when he spat blood. God damn that Zhuo Fan. He only keeps getting stronger. As a spirit puppet, I have no advantage over him. In fact, I'm weaker. How in the hell does he come up with so many soul martial arts? God friggin' damn it. Shadow King fled with a wounded body, cursing all the while. Stop. Thousands of Chuanrong had come to meet him, with Slaughter Wolf in the lead. That you're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.